Chapter 1412. The three dynasties had many territories that bordered each other. Therefore, wars were common occurrences. They would break out every year, or even every month. However, the scale of the wars was very small, and most of them were caused by cultivators below the divine level. But this time was different, completely different. The two majestic empires each had a heavenly body tier elite leading them, and they charged into the chaotic star's majestic empire. In a mere 3 days, they conquered a large area of territory, and they didn't stop, pointing their swords directly at the imperial capital. It looked like the two majestic empires wanted to take down the chaotic star's majestic empire in one go, and the joint peace planet would return to the situation of two empires fighting for supremacy. This was indeed an excellent opportunity because Empress Luan Xing and the 9 kings were in seclusion, and the elites in the imperial court were only the 2 ministers, the 7 generals and Chu Qiuxue. Now there were only 6 generals left. The two majestic empires obviously had their own concerns as well. Were Empress Luan Xing and the 9 kings really in seclusion or not? After almost 30 years, they finally couldn't hold back anymore, and brazenly launched an invasion. As long as they conquered the whole territory, Empress Luan Xing wouldn't be able to draw power of the nation, even if she came out of seclusion. However, the Eternity Sky Emperor and Jade Drop Emperor were different. As their territory expanded, they could turn from guest to host. Ling Han immediately had everyone prepare, planning to face the powerful enemies. But 3 days later, another news came. The scale of the invasion of the two majestic empires increased further, from 1 army led by 1 heavenly body tier to 10 armies, led by 10 heavenly body tier elites. Moreover, it was said that the 2 emperors were personally leading the troops. After receiving this news, Ling Han immediately gave up on the idea of leading an army to face the attack, and decided to travel alone. First of all, the Great Ling Empire's military strength wasn't enough to fight against the 2 majestic empires. Once these 2 giants revealed their true demonic claws, they would have an overwhelming advantage. If it was only an army, then Ling Han only had to kill the heavenly body tier elite leading the army, and the rest were mediocre. He could deal with them with heaven's might alone. But now the 2 emperors had set out. Although Ling Han was confident, his current battle prowess could suppress the early stage of the consummate level of the heavenly body tier. But the 2 emperors were not only at the peak stage of the consummate level of the heavenly body tier, but also 4-star geniuses. Wherever the army advanced, it was equivalent to the extension of their territory. With the addition of the power of the nation, how could they match them? Thus, Ling Han wasn't going to attack the invaders this time. Instead, he was only going to protect Empress Luan Xing, draw her into the Black Tower, and take her away. As long as she could complete her breakthrough and possess battle prowess on par with the pinnacle level, she would become the strongest elite on Joint Peace Planet, or even the whole galaxy. Even if the Eternal Heaven God Realm and the Blue Sky Monarchs worked together, she would still be able to suppress them with a single hand. But now they had no choice but to admit defeat. Ling Han discussed it with the Heavenly Phoenix Divine Maiden and the others, and asked them to stay behind in the Great Ling Empire. This time, he was going to secretly bring someone back, so there was no need to mobilize a large force. Moreover, the others could not help him much either. Though the Heavenly Phoenix Divine Maiden and the others were unwilling, they could only nod in agreement. If they went, they could only stay in the Black Tower as guests. Without further ado, Ling Han set off immediately. He moved at lightning speed, and very soon entered the territory of the Chaotic Star's majestic empire. As he went deeper, he also obtained more information. The 2 majestic empires were advancing at an astonishing speed, and in a short few days, they had already occupied half of the Chaotic Star's majestic empire. Meanwhile, the left and right ministers and the 6 generals' countermeasure was to pull back and retreat to the imperial city. This was a wise move. Otherwise, even if they fought with their lives on the line, who could be a match for the 2 emperors? However, it was precisely this kind of decision that caused the territory to fall even faster. Now everyone was defending the imperial city to the death. With the protection of the Great Formation, added with the combined efforts of 9 heavenly body tier elites, Even the two emperors in the consummate level of the heavenly body tier might not be able to defeat them. Several days later, Ling Han arrived at the foot of the imperial city. "Please open the formation," Ling Han called out to the top of the city walls. Right now, he was an absolute bringer of misfortune. There were only a few heavenly body tier elites on Joint Peace Planet, yet 20 years ago, he had killed quite a few of them, as if he were cutting vegetables. Naturally, he was infamous. Thus, someone quickly went to make a report, and then 4 heavenly body tier elites arrived. Chu Qiuxue, the left and right ministers, and Sha Jing. Right now, the enemy's army could arrive at the city at any time. If this person is an enemy spy, then once the formation is opened, this person will coordinate with us from the inside. What should we do then? Sha Jing said. Fuck, how could I be a spy? The Empress is my wife, Ling Han said in his mind. However, his relationship with Empress Luan Xing was only limited to them. The others did not know at all, because this also involved the secret of the 9-snake tribe. Sha Jing's words were not completely slander. If Ling Han really was a spy, then at this time, if there was the slightest mistake, they would lose everything. Their only hope of turning the tables now was Empress Luan Xing. As long as the Empress successfully broke out of seclusion, she would definitely be more powerful than before. Previously, she could already rival the 2 emperors, and after she came out of seclusion, she would definitely have a crushing advantage. This was everyone's hope. It made them decide to defend the imperial capital to the death, and also decided that they could not be the slightest bit careless. Even Chu Qiuxue revealed a cautious expression. After all, Ling Han was only the ruler of a subordinate nation. Could his loyalty be guaranteed? Moreover, the current Ling Han was too powerful. If he deliberately wanted to cause trouble, who could stop him? Ling Han, are you here to help? She asked. That's right. Ling Han nodded. With us standing guard in this city, we can guarantee that it won't be lost, Chu Qiuxue said. You can patrol outside and bring back some information. When Her Majesty comes out of seclusion, she will naturally give you some credit. Ling Han could not help but smile bitterly. He came to help his wife, but was still suspected by others? What was going on? However, no matter how he explained, Chu Qiuxue and the others shook their heads firmly, unwilling to let Ling Han enter the city. Right now, stability was the most important thing. They could not afford to make any mistakes. It wasn't that Ling Han had never thought of forcing his way in, but first of all, whether or not he could break through the formation was a problem. Second, if he just broke through the formation, and the 2 majestic empires just happened to attack, then he would really be a spy. Since these people were so confident that the formation could stop the 2 emperors, Ling Han could only trust them. He sat down on a distant mountain. Once the armies of the 2 majestic empires reached the city, or even broke through the formation, he would make a move. No matter what, he had to save his wife. Days passed, and just half a month later, 10 flags could be seen fluttering in the wind. The 2 majestic empires had already conquered all of their territories, except for the imperial capital. Their armies were officially at the gates of the city. At this moment, the power of the 2 majestic empires was incomparably strong. Above the imperial city, the totem of the 9 mountains was incomparably dim. The territory, the population, and the overall strength of the citizens all determine the strength of a nation. Those who submit to me live, and those who oppose me die. The Eternity Sky Emperor was dressed in golden armor. His severed arm had long since been regenerated, and he looked awe-inspiring. Hurry up and open the city gates. Otherwise, all of you will perish together with this city. Chapter 14:13. On the other side, the Jade Drop Emperor also stepped forward, his imperial might surging, subduing the enemy without a fight. Even though they were separated by a formation, everyone in the imperial capital paled in shock. Even the great elites of the heavenly body tier couldn't help but tremble. These weren't ordinary elites at the consummate level of the heavenly body tier. Rather, they were lofty emperors whose words were like law. Hurry up and open the city gates, the Jade Drop Emperor said in a menacing voice. Atop the city walls, the 9 heavenly body tier elites stood silently. The Eternity Sky Emperor chuckled coldly as he pointed forward and said, Attack! On the other side, the Jade Drop Emperor also issued a similar command. Instantly, multiple catapults appeared. They were 300 meters tall and 300 meters long, forming a massive structure that struck fear into the hearts of onlookers. These weren't ordinary catapults. They were engraved with formation seals and possessed terrifying destructive power. However, these catapults were too large, and it was very difficult to store them in a spatial spirit tool. Moreover, they were incredibly heavy, requiring the personal protection of a Sun Moon tier elite. Otherwise, if they were crushed by the weight of these catapults, no one would be able to bear it. The 10 catapults were lined up in a row, each of them loaded with special projectiles made from godly metal. These projectiles were spherical and had a radius of 30 meters. Moreover, they were covered in sharp spikes. If one was accidentally struck by these projectiles, even a Sun Moon tier elite could be killed on the spot. However, the accuracy of these projectiles was far too low. Moreover, the preparation time was astonishingly long, so it was completely unrealistic to use them to hit someone. If someone was hit by one of these projectiles, they could only blame their bad luck. They could only be used to attack cities. After all, cities were too large, so they could be hit no matter what. Moreover, cities wouldn't grow legs and run away, so they would become live targets. Boom, boom, boom. The catapults began to unleash their might. Since these siege weapons were specially made for this purpose, they naturally possessed powerful destructive power against large-scale formations. A single cannonball caused the light shield above the city to tremble, and it was on the verge of collapse. The elites in the city hurriedly used their own origin power to maintain the operation of the formation. Because they had adopted a retrenchment strategy, the Sun Moon tier elites in the large cities near the imperial capital received orders almost immediately to move into the imperial capital. Thus, there were as many elites as there were clouds in the imperial capital now. There were tens of thousands of Sun Moon tier elites, so it was naturally not a problem for them to support the operation of the formation. 1,000 people formed a batch and took turns to fight. It was almost impossible for them to be exhausted. But this is just the beginning. The catapults continued to fire, and soon, a large number of soldiers started to attack the imperial city. As long as they exceeded the magic formation's limits, the magic formation would naturally be destroyed. This was what it meant to be able to break through everything with brute force. It didn't matter if he didn't know anything about formations. As long as he had enough strength, it didn't matter what it was. He would break it with brute force. The people of the imperial capital wouldn't sit still either. They all activated their defensive weapons, using their powerful bows and crossbows to counterattack. Immediately, a large number of people were killed or injured. It was easy to defend a city, but difficult to attack a city. This was how it was. However, the individual strength of a martial artist was too strong. It was possible for a supreme king to appear and take down a city with the strength of a single hand. This was a battle of attrition. The chaotic star's majestic empire gathered the strength of the entire nation to defend to the death, while the other two majestic empires sent out all their elites. Their lineup was so luxurious that it was dazzling to the eyes. There really are so many elites. Ling Han's eyes swept over them. Though he was far away, he could still sense a large number of elites. Aside from the Eternity Sky Emperor and Jade Drop Emperor, there were also 3 elites who had reached the consummate level of the heavenly body tier. When they opened and closed their eyes, it was as if the sun had risen, dazzling. "Can we defend? And how long can we defend?" he murmured. The 2 majestic empires had come with the strength of their entire nation, so they should be confident in their victory. If they could be stopped by a city, it might not be underestimating the strength of the 2 majestic empires. More importantly, how long would it take to conquer the city? If they could hold out until Empress Luanxing came out of seclusion, then it would definitely be the victory of the defending side, and there would be no more chaotic star's majestic empire. But who knew how long it would take for Empress Luanxing to come out of seclusion? It would be good to have some confidence, but now it was like a competition with no end, and it was very easy to lose confidence. After all, they were facing the strongest elites of the 2 majestic empires. Hong Long Long, There was a series of deafening booms. The stone catapults tirelessly spat out cannonballs, and the two majestic empires also disregarded casualties, taking turns to pour in a large number of troops to attack the city, displaying their powerful determination. They were determined to conquer the city. On the third day, heavenly body tier elites also joined the attack. They stood proudly in the air, drawing on the power of the stars in the sky, all of them unleashing powerful attacks. This was too terrifying. In battle, who dared to spend a few breaths' time to unleash a powerful attack? To say nothing of a few breaths' time, even if they were slow for a moment, they could be killed. But here, no one could disturb them, and they could accumulate power as they pleased. Boom, boom, boom. Heavenly body tier elites could draw on the power of the stars, drawing on endless power. One meteor after another appeared, burning with flames, crashing down like a rain of fire. They had clearly obscured the sun, and should have been pitch black, but because of the burning meteors, there was boundless light. The people in Point Star City all felt their scalps go numb, and those who were more timid directly sat on the ground, unable to get up no matter how hard they tried. Even Chu Qiuxue and the other great elites of the heavenly body tier wore solemn expressions, cold sweat dripping down their faces. Could the formation block this? The meteors crashed down, and the formation trembled violently. The light shield swayed like ripples in water. Get out of the way! The 9 heavenly body tier elites hurriedly sent the people in the center of the formation flying. They personally maintained the formation, and with the endless supply of power, the formation finally stabilized. However, this was no good. There were close to 100 heavenly body tier elites in the two majestic empires, but there were only 9 of them. Their opponents could take turns to rest, but if they had to maintain the formation, there would come a time when they would run out of power in 1 year, 5 years, or even 10 years. We have to take turns. The 9 heavenly body tier elites took turns, and each of them could maintain the formation for a day. Additionally, with the help of some sun-moon tier elites, they could just barely maintain the formation. Now the situation had stabilized again. Ling Han also relaxed slightly and sat back down. However, a mere 5 days had passed, and the situation changed drastically. The formation of Point Star City suddenly disappeared. It hadn't been destroyed, but rather disappeared on its own. It was as if the people in the city had voluntarily turned off the formation. What was going on? Were they seeking death? What's going on? Why did the formation suddenly turn off? Heavens, what do we do now? The city instantly descended into chaos. The formation had turned off, so how were they going to resist the invasion of the two majestic empires? We're done for, we're done for. Haha, everyone attack. Let's take down this city. The Eternity Sky Emperor roared with laughter. He drew his sword and pointed it forward. Ling Han frowned deeply. He was also completely confused as to why the formation had suddenly lost its effect. However, he didn't hesitate at all, and charged toward Point Star City. Chapter 14:14. Ling Han charged out. Anyone who dared to stop him from saving his wife could die. Kill, kill, kill. His killing intent was boiling, and he was like a demon god. Because he had charged into the city from outside, the others had initially thought that he was one of their own. However, it wasn't long before someone realized that something was off. This was far too unfamiliar. Everyone at the immortal level, or above, had ridiculously good memories. Moreover, there were only tens of thousands of sun-moon tier elites in the Jade Drop Majestic Empire. So why hadn't they seen this person before? No one dared to guess that Ling Han was a heavenly body tier elite, even though his speed was ridiculously fast. Who are you? A cold humph sounded as someone blocked his way. Ling Han couldn't be bothered to waste words. He was focused on traveling, and didn't want to waste time. Thus, although his killing intent was boiling, he didn't attack anyone. However, now that someone had blocked his way, he naturally wouldn't be polite. He waved his hand and this person was instantly smashed into pieces. As blood rained down, Ling Han's figure dashed out, and he didn't stop. However, in this way, he naturally became the target of everyone, and it was difficult for him to advance quietly. There's a spy! Take him down! Kill him! Instantly, over a dozen people charged over. They were all at the Sun-Moon tier, and heavenly body tier elites were in the sky. Naturally, they couldn't alert them at the sight of an enemy. Ling Han couldn't even be bothered to attack. In any case, his physique was almost comparable to level 12 godly metal, so it didn't matter even if he was attacked by 100 million Sun-Moon tier elites. He only channeled the aura of a heavenly body tier elite and quickly advanced. If he traveled in the sky, he would be attacked by heavenly body tier elites. In comparison, it was naturally faster to travel on the ground. One had to know that the Jade Drop Majestic Empire wasn't an upstart like the Chaotic Stars Majestic Empire that had only been established for 1 million years. There was a clear hierarchy of elites in the empire, and among the heavenly body tier, there were low extreme, consummate level, medium extreme, and high extreme. Thus, if Ling Han was targeted by those at the high extreme of the heavenly body tier, even if they couldn't stop him, they would at least slow him down. Pung 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 pung. Ling Han turned into an angry arrow that shot through the crowd. As his aura swept past, the Sun-Moon tier elites that had charged over all froze, and were instantly sent flying, turning into a rain of blood. On the battlefield, Ling Han was merciless, displaying his iron-blooded side. Not good. This isn't a Sun-Moon tier elite, but a great elite of the heavenly body tier. Someone exclaimed in the distance. Hurry up and inform all the powerhouses. Cries of astonishment rang out. Very quickly, the heavenly body tier elites overseeing the battle in the sky also discovered the anomaly, and they all turned their attention to Ling Han. How audacious! You actually dared to ambush us from behind and kill the soldiers of our majestic empire. You're seeking death. A heavenly body tier elite moved, and from over 10 miles away, he launched a palm strike that drew on the power of the stars. A large hand of origin power appeared in front of Ling Han. Ling Han didn't dodge or evade. He didn't even stop moving forward as he crashed into the giant hand. Bam! His figure forcefully crashed out of the large hand, leaving a trail of dust in his wake. Meanwhile, the large hand naturally had a large hole in it. In the sky, the great elite of the heavenly body tier gave a muffled groan. A bloody hole had shockingly appeared in his right hand. Although it was the large hand of origin power that Ling Han had crashed into, he had still suffered light injuries due to the influence of his aura. He couldn't help but be stunned because he clearly knew that Ling Han hadn't moved at all. He had merely crashed into the large hand of origin power. Yet the resulting impact had destroyed his large hand of origin power. In fact, it had even caused damage to his body. What kind of physique was this? What kind of destructive power was this? He was practically a human-shaped divine weapon. Stop him at all costs. A great elite of the heavenly body tier said coldly. Instantly, the soldiers below got into formation and wanted to combine their strength to stop Ling Han. Pung! Ling Han crashed over, and instantly, the soldiers scattered like flowers in the sky. They couldn't stop his advance at all. In fact, those who were sent flying were forcibly shattered in the air. Whether they were at the Mountain River tier or the Sun-Moon tier, they were completely unqualified to stop him. This time, the expressions of the great elites of the heavenly body tier all changed. Inconceivable. When Sun-Moon tier elites got into formation, not only would they be able to unleash greater power, but more importantly, they would be able to distribute the power they received. This would allow Sun-Moon tier elites to be able to rival heavenly body tier elites. Of course, this was only possible on the battlefield. Otherwise, there wouldn't be enough of them, and it would be useless even if they joined forces. However, Ling Han only crashed into the large formation, and it collapsed with a loud boom. He was like a raging bull that didn't care about the rules at all. He didn't understand the rules either. He simply relied on brute force to charge through. He relied on his great physical strength and powerful physique to charge through. Humph! Another heavenly body tier elite moved, shooting out a streak of sword light that quickly caught up to Ling Han and slashed toward his back. Ling Han frowned. This was an elite at the high extreme of the heavenly body tier, and he was just barely qualified to wound him. I can't stop. Ling Han immediately made a decision, and his figure was still as swift as the wind. The protective formation had been closed for no reason, so a huge change had definitely occurred in Point Star City. He had to rush over immediately. Pooh! The sword light arrived and slammed into Ling Han's back. His clothes instantly fluttered like butterflies, and a bloody mark appeared on his jade-like back, from which blood immediately seeped out. However, the heavenly body tier elites of the Jade Drop Majestic Empire didn't show any joy upon seeing this. Instead, they were incredibly astonished. Fuck, what kind of physique is this? It's too freakish. One had to realize that the person who had attacked was an elite at the peak stage of the high extreme of the heavenly body tier. Furthermore, he was a 4-star genius, and the might of his sword strike was almost on par with the peak stage of the consummate level. Who would dare to take this strike head-on with their physique? It was clear that Ling Han's speed hadn't decreased, and he had clearly spent all of his energy on advancing. Thus, his defenses were definitely extremely weak. More importantly, he was only at the medium extreme, so what if he defended with all his might? However, this wasn't the most astonishing thing. Soon, the heavenly body tier elites all sucked in a breath of cold air. The wound on Ling Han's back was healing at a speed visible to the naked eye. There wasn't even a scar left behind. If it weren't for the traces of blood, who would believe that Ling Han had actually been struck by a sword just then? Xiao. Ling Han had already charged into Point Star City, leaving behind a trail of dust. With the speed of a heavenly body tier elite, how long would it take for him to cover such a short distance? The great elites of the Jade Drop Majestic Empire all smirked coldly. Wasn't entering Point Star City the same as walking right into a trap? Fine. They would just let him fall along with the city. After entering the city, Ling Han immediately unleashed his divine sense to scan the surroundings. He discovered that there were 8 powerful auras gathered in one place, and he immediately rushed over with a few leaps. Chu Qiuxue and the left and right ministers appeared before him. What's going on? Why has the protective formation been closed? Ling Han roared. Chu Qiuxue and the others immediately became wary. Right now, any outsider could be a powerful enemy. Ling Han's eyes swept over them. There were a few great generals that he hadn't seen before. However, he only glanced at them before frowning and asking, "Where's Ding Lian?" There were only 8 heavenly body tier elites here. The left minister's expression darkened, and he said, "Today just so happens to be Ding Lian's turn to guard the core of the formation." Then he must have destroyed the formation and purposefully led the enemy in. Ling Han immediately came to a realization. His heart involuntarily jolted, and he hurriedly asked Chu Qiuxue, "Where is His Majesty cultivating in seclusion? Quick, take me there." Reading on a mobile phone. Chapter 14:16. Ling Han didn't plan to ask any more questions. Perhaps Ding Li, and also knew the secret that the 9 kings were all clones of Empress Luanxing. Otherwise, he wouldn't have dared to take such a risk. After all, as long as one of the 9 kings was in a clear-headed state, they would be able to make a move. If they unleashed their power at the consummate level of the heavenly body tier, even a cultivator at the high extreme would be insta-killed. The secret of the 9-snake clan should be kept forever. Ling Han, it was a huge miscalculation that I didn't kill you back then. Ding Lian raised his right palm, and it instantly turned snow-white like jade. Even his skin became transparent, and he could feel his blood flowing and the bones in his fingers. White jade sky-fiend palm. The right minister said with a trembling voice. His, Chu Qiuxue and the others all paled. This was a very, very powerful secret technique, but it was not too secretive. Those who had reached the heavenly body tier would be able to enter the treasury of the imperial family to read. But after so many years, not a single person had successfully cultivated it. It's too hard. However, Ding Lian shocked everyone once again. This was definitely a super prodigy. Within a million years, he had leaped from the low extreme of the heavenly body tier to the high extreme. So it did not seem strange that he could cultivate the white jade murderous heaven palm. With a slap of his palm, a baleful aura surged and destroyed everything. To say nothing of those at the medium extreme of the heavenly body tier. Even those at the high extreme of the heavenly body tier would feel a murderous aura seeping through their bodies if they were struck by this palm strike. They would have to resist with all their might, or they would definitely die. The killing intent in Ling Han's eyes grew even more intense. Fuck, you actually dared to covet my wife? You're courting death. Thinking about it in his mind was everyone's freedom, and he couldn't control it. But since you dared to take action, don't blame him for being merciless. Ling Han rushed out without dodging at all. You're courting death, Ding Lian said coldly. He had endured for so many years, and now, he could finally reveal his true self. This gave him an indescribable sense of joy. Ling Han unsheathed his wooden sword. It seemed that this sword would undergo an inexplicable change after drinking the blood of a strong warrior. Under normal circumstances, he would naturally not recklessly kill people. He slashed out with his sword, using Tide of the Ages. The baleful aura instantly aged and lost all its power. What? Ding Lian turned pale with fright. That was the white jade heaven's baneful palm. Even he had spent 300,000 years to master it. He was confident that he would be able to kill any opponent whose cultivation base was lower than his with a single palm strike. There was no way there would be a second possibility. However, he actually couldn't kill an elite at the medium extreme of the heavenly body tier? No. Not only had he not killed him, he actually didn't even have the right to stop him. That wooden sword was already slashing toward him. Humph! A long staff appeared. Ding Lian's proudest weapon was a staff. It had accompanied him for countless years, and his heart was already connected to it. He immediately blocked the attack. Ding as the sword descended, the staff was immediately cut into two. The sword's momentum did not stop, and continued to descend. Pooh! Ding Lian immediately spat out a mouthful of blood. This staff was connected to his mind, so when it was broken, he also felt as if he had been heavily slashed by a sword. His expression withered greatly. But the sword fell. He wanted to retreat, but the stone chamber was right behind him. How could he retreat? Besides, Ling Han had attacked in anger. How could he possibly dodge it? Pooh! Ding Lian was instantly sliced into two. The wooden sword was bathed in blood, and the divine patterns on it became even more distinct. They wriggled like snakes and exuded an evil aura. This was a precious tool of the netherworld. Ling Han came to a realization. No wonder it was so evil. He faintly felt an urge to go crazy and kill. He humphed in his mind. Could it be that he couldn't deal with the sword? Chu Qiuxue and the others were all numb, and they were completely speechless. In the past, Zhao Jianbai had been killed by a single strike of Ling Han's sword, but he had only been in the low extreme after all. Now, however, Ding Lian, who was in the high extreme, had also been killed with a single strike. Just how powerful had Ling Han become? Ling Han walked forward, and also began to break the restrictions. He was about to open the stone door. At this time, he could tell what was going on. The left and right ministers didn't make a sound. Only Chu Qiuxue asked, "What are you doing?" "Of course I'm opening the door and taking my wife away. Don't tell me I'm just going to wait for death here?" Ling Han humphed softly. However, although he had some attainments in formations, the difficulty of the formation before him had clearly surpassed his limits. He couldn't break it in a short time. If he had known this would happen, he would have taken his time and waited for Ding Lian to break the restriction before killing him. Pa 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 pa! Applause suddenly rang out. An incredibly domineering figure descended from the sky, and there were at least 50 elites standing in a row behind him. They were all flying in the air. They were all at the heavenly body tier. The person in the lead was the Eternity Sky Emperor. He looked down at them with disdain and said, "Why aren't you kneeling to greet me?" Boom! A terrifying might enveloped them, and even those at the same level as him couldn't help but tremble. Ling Han turned around. Now that the situation had changed, it was clear that his plan of opening the restriction and taking Empress Luan Xing away could no longer be used. Not only that, but he also had to turn the tables. Right now, he had to guard the stone room and prevent anyone from approaching. King of Curses, you've lost your arm once, yet you haven't learned your lesson. You want to lose it a second time? He immediately unleashed a powerful attack. Wang! The heavenly body tier elites behind the Eternity Sky Emperor were in an uproar. Their empress had actually lost her arm before. Moreover, judging from Ling Han's tone, it was related to him. Gasp! This brat is far too powerful. The Eternity Sky Emperor's expression darkened. He had lost an arm in order to retrieve the Nine Tribulations sword, and only he and his younger brother knew about this. How could a third person know about this? He absolutely didn't believe that Chang Tao would tell anyone else about this. Moreover, Ling Han was far too insulting. He had actually called him the king of curses. However, he couldn't defend himself. If he said that his arm had nothing to do with Ling Han, and that it had been severed by the ancestral tool of his clan, it would only make things worse and ruin his reputation. Moreover, was this really the time to defend himself? Who will capture this person for me? He asked calmly. As the ruler of a nation, he naturally wouldn't act rashly. I'm not too late, am I? Another domineering figure descended. This was the Jade Drop Emperor. And he also had a large number of heavenly body tier elites with him. Everyone's faces were ashen. Apart from surrendering or dying in battle, was there a third option? I'll do it. A stooped elder appeared. There was an air of death around his body, and it was clear that he didn't have much lifespan left. However, the aura that he exuded was incredibly terrifying. Since he was able to address himself as I in front of the Eternity Sky Emperor, he naturally wasn't simple. He was an elite at the consummate level of the heavenly body tier. In fact, he had even made a name for himself before the Eternity Sky Emperor. It was also because of this that he was about to reach the end of his lifespan. He stared at Ling Han, his eyes filled with curiosity, greed, and even more so anticipation. This young man was able to advance to the heavenly body tier in such a short time, so he definitely had a massive secret. If he could obtain this secret, he might be able to use it to break through to the Eternal River tier. Not only would his lifespan increase explosively, but he would also regain his vitality. Moreover, he would be able to look down on the entire world and rule over an entire galaxy. This naturally made him greedy. In fact, he was slightly worried about his own gains and losses. What if Ling Han had only consumed some kind of great medicine? Young man, surrender obediently, and I can spare you a bit of suffering. He stretched out a hand, which transformed into a massive pitch-black palm. How could Ling Han block an attack from someone at the peak stage of the consummate level of the heavenly body tier? Chapter 14:17. This wasn't some low extreme or high extreme of the heavenly body tier, but rather the consummate level, perhaps even the peak stage. Moreover, the elder was a 3-star genius. There was a gap of 11 stars between the two of them in terms of cultivation level. And adding on power of the nation and his own talent in martial art, Ling Han had to surpass at least 15 stars of battle prowess to stand against the elder. This was impossible. Completely impossible. Ling Han turned around to look at the stone door behind him, and his expression instantly became determined. He was going to defend to the death. Behind him was his wife, so not only could he not move out of the way, he couldn't even take a step back. Then let's fight. Ling Han gave a battle cry, activating Tide of the Ages. This was a celestial technique, and also the most powerful technique he currently possessed. Wang. The old man's palm continued to grow dimmer and dimmer. By the time it reached Ling Han, the might of this palm had completely disappeared. When they saw this scene, everyone was so shocked that they couldn't say a word. Previously, it was said that there was a gap of 15 stars between Ling Han and this elder. How could there be such a prodigy in this world? But the reality was that Ling Han had really neutralized this attack. Interesting. The Eternity Sky Emperor's eyes lit up. Hee. The Jade Drop Emperor also looked surprised, and his fingers twitched slightly. This was an urge to attack. Good brat, the elder praised. Although he hadn't used his full power in this attack, he was even more curious about Ling Han with his cultivation level. If someone said that Ling Han didn't have a shocking secret on him, he wouldn't believe it even if he chopped off his head. He attacked again, and this time, the power of his attack was 10 times stronger. Ling Han charged out, and once again activated Tide of the Ages. However, this time, even Tide of the Ages was unable to completely nullify the elder's attack. Under the impact of the remaining power, he was forcefully pushed back. Tung, he was forced back over a dozen steps. Seeing that he would hit the stone door if he took another step back, Ling Han clenched his teeth and stomped heavily on the ground with his right foot. His foot broke through the ground, and firmly stabilized his body. Originally, with his physique, he wouldn't be at a disadvantage at all if he took advantage of the situation to deflect the force. However, he insisted on taking it head-on. This caused his body to boil, and he couldn't help but spit out a mouthful of blood. However, he did not even frown as he stood proudly like a spear. Everyone was moved by this, especially Chu Qiuxue and the members of the Chaotic Star's majestic empire. They were filled with admiration. Compared to Ding Lian's selfish love, Ling Han's love was clearly more worthy of being called true love. However, in the face of overwhelming power, what use is true love? You can block for a while, but can you block for a lifetime? You can block one person, but can you block 10 people, or 100 people? Elder Ge, drive him away, the Eternity Sky Emperor said. Now that Ling Han was blocking the door, he couldn't break the restriction. All right. The elder nodded, and launched another attack at Ling Han. Young man, come. Let's fight to our heart's content in the sky. Fight your sister. Ling Han spat. With me here, no one can even think about touching my wife. The expressions of the Eternity Sky Emperor and Jade Drop Emperor instantly changed. Had they mobilized their troops this time to divide up the Chaotic Star's majestic empire and conveniently abduct this empress? Or had they launched an invasion to hide the empress in a mistress? Naturally, only they themselves knew the answer. However, the two emperors had once said that as long as the empress of the Chaotic Star's majestic empire was willing to marry, they would not hesitate to give up the throne and support the empress to ascend to the throne. Now that Ling Han actually said that the empress was his wife, the two emperors were naturally enraged. The elder was also enraged, and was even more unable to accept this. Just then, Ling Han had been majestic and awe-inspiring. So why did he turn around and say something like fight your sister? Were you still an elite? How could you not be particular at all? He was fuming with anger, and launched another punch, shooting out a black ball of light. This ball was only the size of a person, and was incredibly black and pure. It exuded a boundless aura of death, as if a living person would instantly lose their vitality with a touch. 5-in annihilation, the elder said proudly. This was an ultimate technique that he had created after being inspired by an ancient technique. Previously, it only had the power of 4-in, and he had forcibly added the power of the 5th-in, increasing its power even further. Ling Han used Tide of the Ages again. Whether this celestial technique was used to attack or defend, it was endlessly wondrous. Of course, the most important thing was that Ling Han had a defense close to level 12 godly metal, so he could completely withstand the residual power that Tide of the Ages couldn't dissolve. Ling Han couldn't help but sigh with emotion. After all, he wasn't a member of the Ding clan, so he couldn't reach 100% mastery of Tide of the Ages. Perhaps he would be able to completely comprehend the secrets of this celestial technique after advancing to the Severing Mundane tier. But right now, it was still slightly inferior to when he had used it in the hands of a member of the Ding clan. One had to realize that when he had used it in the hands of Ding Yaolong, he had still been able to completely master it, even if there was a difference of 2 minor levels. While he was sighing with emotion, the Eternity Sky Emperor, the Jade Drop Emperor, and the others were becoming more and more astonished. It was one thing to block 1 or 2 strikes, but Ling Han was still full of energy, and he could completely fight like this for 8 to 10 years. They couldn't waste any more time. Although Empress Luan Xing was still in seclusion, who knew when she would appear? Even if she hadn't broken through, as long as she recovered her normal strength, even the 2 emperors wouldn't be able to kill her. Now was the best opportunity. Attack together, capture this brat, and destroy the stone door. The Eternity Sky Emperor roared. On the other side, the Jade Drop Emperor also issued a similar command. Instantly, the 100 or so heavenly body tier elites all attacked, and they madly bombarded Ling Han. How could they block this? There was no way to block it. Chu Qiuxue and the others were all in despair. Right now Ling Han could only bow his head. There were several elites at the consummate level of the heavenly body tier here, and Ling Han had only been able to block one of them with his full power. What could he do now? A cold smile appeared on Ling Han's face. Wang. He unleashed heaven's might, and with a wave of his hand, he tossed out a handful of flying fire pills. It wasn't a single pill, but a handful. Under the impact of heaven's might, those whose cultivation level was lower than Ling Han's immediately collapsed onto the ground. Even those whose cultivation level had reached the medium extreme wore ugly expressions. Their power had been forcefully suppressed by 2 stars. At this moment the flying fire pill exploded. This was a level 10 divine pill. And it wasn't meant for consumption. Rather, it was an extremely rare alchemical pill used to injure enemies. Rather than calling it a pill, it would be more accurate to call it an explosive pill. It was capable of severely wounding even those at the medium extreme of the heavenly body tier. Moreover, Ling Han hadn't tossed out a single pill, but rather a handful. What kind of concept was this? Boom, boom, boom. When several dozen flying fire pills exploded at the same time, it was as if several dozen elites at the medium extreme of the heavenly body tier had unleashed their full power. Naturally, terrifying shockwaves swept through the surroundings. Even the left minister and the others were sent flying by the shockwaves, regardless of how far away they were. Even they were affected, so the elites of the Eternity Sky Majestic Empire and the Jade Drop Majestic Empire were the next most affected. Thus, they naturally suffered the greatest impact. 7 heavenly body tier elites were instantly killed, while another 17 were severely wounded, and 21 were lightly wounded. This scene was enough to be recorded in the annals of history. This battle had shocked the whole world. Ling Han, the Eternity Sky Emperor, roared. In comparison, the Eternity Sky Majestic Empire had suffered even greater damage. Added with the fact that they had been tormented by Ling Han 20 years ago, a few heavenly body tier elites had already died. This was naturally one disaster after another. What the fuck are you calling me? Ling Han rebuked rudely. Chapter 14:18. The Eternity Sky Emperor was furious. Had he ever been scolded like this since he was born? You're courting death. He suppressed his anger. Hong, he released all of his aura, turning into divine flames that soared into the heavens. Fire element divine beasts emerged one after another. There were fire dragons, fire phoenixes, and fire cheilants. Their heads were all roaring. Come, Ling Han crooked his finger. Believe it or not, I'll be able to suppress you in less than 1,000 years. Why don't you wait for my wife to come out of seclusion? I'm sure she'll be able to kill you easily. The Eternity Sky Emperor made his move. This was different. Not only was he at the peak stage of the consummate level of the heavenly body tier, he was also a 4-star genius, and was also the ruler of a nation. He could draw on power of the nation without limit, as long as the power of the nation was not exhausted, and as long as his body could withstand it. His battle prowess had increased by another 2 stars on the basis of exceeding 4 stars. How do I block that? Even though Ling Han had unleashed Tide of the Ages, he was still sent flying by a single strike. However, he forcefully stopped himself the instant he crashed into the stone door. His entire body instantly sprayed out a mist of blood, and he was badly mangled. You want to have ideas about my wife with just this little bit of strength? Have you wasted your 10 to 20 million years of cultivation? Ling Han's words were wicked, and his words came out one after another. Amidst his fury, the Eternity Sky Emperor was also astonished. Ling Han was only at the early stage of the medium extreme. If he was given some more time, he wouldn't even need to advance to the consummate level. As long as he reached the high extreme, would there still be anyone in the heavenly body tier capable of killing him? This man cannot be left alive. Haha, I'll join in as well. The Jade Drop Emperor roared with laughter as he shot out a fist. A water dragon instantly materialized and charged toward Ling Han. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. The sound of water soared into the sky, and its power was astonishing. The 2 emperors actually joined hands to deal with a junior? That's shameless. But who dared to say anything? After reaching their heights, did they still need to care about the opinions of others? To say nothing of the fact that they were only teaming up to deal with a cultivator at the medium extreme of the heavenly body tier. Even if they teamed up to kill a cultivator at the mountain river tier. So what? Of course, this was just a joke, but a joke that no one dared to laugh at. Now how could Ling Han block it? Ling Han waved his hand and took out a large pile of flying fire pills. "Two old scoundrels, I'll blow you up." Xiao xiao xiao. He began to smash people. Boom 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 boom, deafening booms rang out. And under the intense rumbling, everyone was thrown off their feet. This was no longer the attack of a cultivator at the medium extreme of the heavenly body tier. With several hundred of them stacked on top of each other, their might had skyrocketed. Ling Han unleashed Tide of the Ages again, finally nullifying the attacks of the two god emperors. After this strike, everyone's jaws dropped. Even if they were at the heavenly body tier, so what? At this moment, they were all stunned speechless. The two great emperors had joined hands, but they still couldn't take down Ling Han. In fact, they had been completely neutralized. Regardless of whether Ling Han had borrowed external power or not, on the joint peace planet, the Eternity Sky Emperor and the Jade Drop Emperor were synonymous with invincibility. However, even when the two of them joined forces, they were still unable to defeat Ling Han. This battle was enough to make Ling Han's name known throughout the world. Unfortunately, he was destined not to leave this place alive. Today's battle would be his swan song. How many more of these things do you have?" the Jade Drop Emperor sneered. "Enough to blow up your nest." Ling Han stretched out his hand, and another large handful of flying fire pills appeared in his hand. Fuck. At this moment, even the two god emperors were cursing in their minds. How could you have so many of such powerful things? Could it be that you fucking stole the treasure trove of an Eternal River tier elite? Of course, they didn't know that Ling Han was the Alchemy Emperor. Moreover, he had dug up a forest of explosion fruits and stored it in the Black Tower. Thus, he had accumulated an astonishing number of flying fire pills. Attack! We must force him to use all of his trump cards as soon as possible. The Eternity Sky Emperor waved his hand, and the heavenly body tier elites who still had battle prowess stepped forward. The Jade Drop Emperor also issued the same command. Right now, their priority was to kill Ling Han, open the stone door, and capture Empress Luan Xing. There were a total of 9 elites at the consummate level of the heavenly body tier, as well as 19 elites at the high extreme of the heavenly body tier. There was no need to send out any elites at the medium extreme, as there were already enough of them. Moreover, those at the medium extreme weren't even qualified to wound Ling Han. Ling Han took a deep breath. With so many elites teaming up, even the flying fire pills wouldn't be of much use. "Are you guys forcing me to use my ultimate move?" he asked calmly. Die! The elites of the two majestic empires all attacked. With so many of them teaming up, they naturally weren't afraid. Hee, don't cry all of you. Ling Han waved his right hand, and a person was tossed out. Fuck you. This person was naturally the Notionless Saint. He was furious. He was about to break through to the Sun-Moon tier. Yet he had actually been tossed out of the Black Tower. This caused him to curse angrily. However, the corners of his lips twitched. Holy fuck. Brat, are you a jinx? Why are you stirring up trouble everywhere? If he were still in his last life, he naturally wouldn't have taken a few dozen heavenly body tier elites seriously. However, he was only an empty shell now. However, he had been placed on the grill, so he could only brace himself and endure. "You're courting death," he said with a cold humph. Boom! The aura of a Genesis tier swept through the air, and it was as if a saint had descended. What? The heavenly body tier elites hurriedly stopped in their tracks, expressions of shock and despair on their faces. This aura was far too powerful, so powerful that it had surpassed the level of their life forms. It was as if this person wanted to attack them, and they didn't dare to resist at all. Eternal River tier. This was definitely an Eternal River tier elite. Instantly everyone was stunned. They didn't notice that the Notionless Saint was only an empty shell. Greetings, Senior. Everyone, including the Eternity Sky Emperor and Jade Drop Emperor, bowed respectfully. This aura was definitely the martial art tier, which was above the heavenly body tier. The Notionless Saint's expression didn't change, and he calmly said, "This brat has some history with me, so why are you making things difficult for him?" Everyone came to a sudden realization. No wonder Ling Han's cultivation level had soared so quickly. As it turned out, he had received the guidance of an Eternal River tier elite. It would be strange if he didn't soar. They were all envious. If only they could also have the guidance of such an elite. However, with such an elite as their backer, could it be that they were going to give up just like that? Yu and Jade Drop Emperor frowned at the same time. At first, they had indeed been stunned by the notionless saint's aura, but they soon discovered that something was off. This aura seemed to be strong in appearance, but weak in reality. It was far less terrifying than they had imagined. Suspicion rose in their hearts, but they didn't dare to act out. If they were wrong, and that Eternal River tier elite unleashed his might. So what if they were the rulers of a nation? With a flip of his palm, he would be able to kill them. Please forgive us, Senior, the Eternity Sky Emperor said respectfully. He seemed to be observing the notionless saint. They had already been forced into such a corner, yet the notionless saint didn't attack and kill them all. Instead, it seemed like he was trying to reason with them. Wasn't this suspicious? How could elites have such a good temper? How experienced was the notionless saint? So he naturally saw through the suspicions of the Eternity Sky Emperor and the others. He immediately humphed and unleashed his aura. Instantly, a mountainous pressure weighed down on them. Chapter 1420. Fuck, are you a monster? Everyone was so shocked that they couldn't say a word. This was too ridiculous. You were beaten until your body was deformed, but you recovered in the blink of an eye. Why don't you ascend to the heavens? However, in the next instant, all the heavenly body tier elites breathing quickened, their eyes shining with golden light. This was definitely a peerless cultivation technique, because there was no sign of Ling Han taking any pills or using any treasures. Even if one had to pay a huge price to activate this cultivation technique, the fact that it could instantly heal one's injuries was definitely life-saving. If you fought with someone and got seriously injured, others would think that you were dead for sure. But you suddenly became as lively as a dragon, and as lively as a tiger. Whether it was seizing the opportunity to counterattack or escape, you would be able to display miraculous effects. How could such a powerful technique exist in this world? I want. All of the heavenly body tier elites stared at Ling Han like resentful wives. Even the Eternity Sky Emperor and Jade Drop Emperor were no exception. In comparison, it seemed like even Empress Luan Xing could be set aside. In this world, the most important thing was still strength. With strength, there would naturally be power, status, beauties, and everything else. On the other hand, plundering Ling Han's cultivation technique would allow him to increase his strength. Not bad. But how many moves can you withstand? The Eternity Sky Emperor attacked, and a punch shot out. It seemed ordinary, yet it enveloped the surroundings, and it was as if an emperor had descended. Meanwhile, the Jade Drop Emperor didn't make a move. He was waiting for Ling Han to reveal an opening after he parried his attacks. Then, he would deal a heavy blow to him, just like the Eternity Sky Emperor had done to him earlier. What the fuck? Ling Han waved his hand and tossed out a huge pile of flying fire pills. Previously, the Jade Drop Emperor had used his dermic world, but his body was too big. If he tossed out the flying fire pills, their power would be scattered, and the effects would not be as good. But if the Eternity Sky Emperor didn't use Dharma World, wouldn't that be asking for trouble? Boom, 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 boom. A series of violent explosions rang out, and even the air was distorted. The nearby heavenly body tier elites were all sent flying, and it was clear how many flying fire pills Ling Han had tossed out in a single breath. The Eternity Sky Emperor had an ugly expression on his face. Blood was dripping from his right hand, and he had actually been injured by that strike just now. Although it was only a small wound, being wounded by a measly cultivator at the medium extreme of the heavenly body tier was a great humiliation to him. The Emperor must not be humiliated. He let out a furious roar and finally activated his Transcendence World, turning into a man of fire that was thousands of feet tall. He looked like a god of fire from ancient times. He then raised his leg and stomped down on Ling Han. This was filled with incomparable contempt. So what if I step on you? But who asked him to have an overwhelming advantage in terms of cultivation level and power? Moreover, Tao Manifestation Heaven and Earth also allowed this advantage to be magnified endlessly. With a stomp of his foot, he did not need to aim at all. and he would be able to flatten both Ling Han and that small mountain. Of course, he didn't know if the secret room built in the small mountain would be damaged, but he believed that it wouldn't. Otherwise, it would be too weak. Ling Han charged into the sky. He was in a passive position because he had to protect the mountain behind him. His wife was inside. Blood may flow, but men must not retreat. Ling Han unleashed Tide of the Ages, but just like before, he was forcefully knocked down. The Jade Drop Emperor took advantage of this opportunity to attack. Boom! Ling Han had no way to dodge, and his body was deformed again. His injuries were extremely severe. He channeled another drop of indestructible true fluid, but using it consecutively in a short period of time would cause its effects to decrease sharply. He used 2 drops in a row, and only then did his injuries completely recover. Moreover, his recovery speed was still slower than before. Even so, everyone was stunned speechless. Such an astonishing recovery technique could actually be used consecutively? The two of you really have a tacit understanding with each other. Is it because you've been together for a long time that the feeling of sunrise has returned? Ling Han said disdainfully, as he wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth. Been together for a long time. The feeling of sunrise? What the fuck are you saying? The Eternity Sky Emperor and Jade Drop Emperor's expressions changed drastically. This brat's mouth was far too immoral. He actually dared to slander them like this. You're really seeking death. Ling Han laughed heartily. He used his body as a bow and channeled the annihilating dragon star arrow. The pupils of the Eternity Sky Emperor and Jade Drop Emperor contracted slightly as they could sense the threat of this arrow. Even they felt this way, let alone the others. As long as their cultivation level was below the consummate level, they all felt their backs become wet with sweat. It was as if one of them would definitely die if Ling Han released his arrow. For a moment, neither the Eternity Sky Emperor nor the Jade Drop Emperor moved. This was because Ling Han had not only channeled the annihilating dragon star arrow, but he had also used a wisp of heaven's might. Great intimidation. However, the two emperors were king tiers after all. How confident were king tiers? Moreover, their cultivation levels were far above Ling Han's, so they quickly recovered. Killing intent surged in their eyes. They exchanged a glance, and both discovered the determination in each other's eyes. Even if they couldn't defeat Empress Luan Xing today, they would still kill Ling Han. This young man was far too terrifying. He was not even 500 years old, yet he already possessed such terrifying power. Then, what would happen if he was given another 500 years? The Empire was in danger. Kill. They definitely had to kill him today, snatch his cultivation technique, and then snatch the one behind him. Then, they would have a mistress in their house. When they thought of Empress Luan Xing's breathtakingly beautiful appearance, their hearts involuntarily trembled. So what if they were king tiers? They felt an urge to howl like wolves. In front of absolute power, what tricks can you play? The Eternity Sky Emperor drew out a sword. Of course, it wasn't the 9 Tribulations sword, but its might was still extraordinary. Sword Chi soared into the sky. And this was the most powerful god tool among heavenly body tier elites. The Jade Drop Emperor also wore a solemn expression, and a jade green spear slowly surged out of his body. This was the ancestral weapon of the Jade Drop Majestic Empire. Although it wasn't at the level of the Eternal River tier, it could be considered a supreme weapon among heavenly body tier elites. They were all afraid of Ling Han's potential. If they couldn't kill him, who knew what kind of terrifying threat he would pose in the future? Moreover, Ling Han still had a supreme cultivation technique on him, so they definitely had to obtain it. A competition of god tools? Ling Han chuckled coldly. With a thought, the divine demon sword immediately flew out and hovered above his head, radiating with divine light. It was clearly only level 10, yet it was countless times more powerful than the Eternity Sky Emperor's sword and the Jade Drop Emperor's spear. I am the heavens. You must worship me. Everyone was stunned. It was only a sword, so how could it exude such domineering aura? How could they know that the divine demon sword had been forged from divine metal in the first place, and it had been fused with Ling Han's martial art intent? It possessed heaven's might, so it was naturally high and mighty. like a celestial being in the mortal world. In terms of intrinsic quality, the divine demon sword was far, far superior to Ling Han. Meanwhile, Ling Han gripped the wooden sword in his hand. This was a powerful weapon of the netherworld, and he couldn't awaken it. However, this didn't stop him from wielding it. As long as it drew blood, its destructive power was no less than that of the divine demon sword. The divine light of the divine demon sword blazed brightly, suppressing the Eternity Sky Emperor's sword and the Jade Drop Emperor's spear to the point where they became dim and lusterless. They couldn't even be called god tools anymore. Even the wooden sword had curbed its ferocious nature, appearing much more docile. When a celestial tool unleashed its might, everything else became trash. Chapter 1421. How many treasures does this young man have? While everyone was shocked, they were also curious. Either one of the two swords could be called a precious treasure, but now they were both in the hands of a single person. This was simply embarrassing to these veteran experts. You can't beat a kid who's not even 500 years old. The Eternity Sky Emperor revealed a solemn expression. He could feel the sword in his hand trembling. The divine sword had a spirit of its own, and this was the sword spirit's fear. It was a fear that stemmed from its rank. What exactly was that sword? It clearly didn't pose much of a threat to him. It was just very overbearing. Why did the fire dragon sword fear it so much? This was a treasured artifact that had been continuously nurtured by generations of Eternity Sky Majestic Empire's martial artists, and it had cultivated a sword spirit. When it was awakened, even he would be a match for it. But this kind of treasure was actually afraid of a sword that wasn't very high level. It was too strange. Even if it was an Eternal River tier-level god tool, it couldn't possibly be like this. Die! The Jade Drop Emperor thrusted his spear forward. He could also sense the Jade Water Spear's terror, and so he wanted to take the initiative and kill Ling Han as quickly as possible. Otherwise, the spear spirit within the Jade Water Spear might be forcibly dispersed. Wang! The divine demon sword slashed out, and heaven's might swirled around it, forcefully reducing the Jade Drop Emperor's power by 2 stars. Under the nourishment of Ling Han, the divine demon sword also possessed the complete might of heaven's might. This was because it was divine metal, and could withstand this kind of martial art intent, and could exude this kind of might. If it had been any other godly metal, it was likely that it would have shattered on its own. Unfortunately, this couldn't be stacked with Ling Han's heaven's might. That was because they came from the same source, and the heaven's might in the divine demon sword originated from Ling Han's martial art intent. There was no difference at all. The Jade Drop Emperor was astonished. His strength had actually decreased by 100-fold. He hurriedly retracted his hand. His strength had actually dropped by so much, causing him to be extremely vigilant. The Eternity Sky Emperor couldn't help but frown. What the hell are you doing? He snorted and raised his sword to meet the attack. However, just like the Jade Drop Emperor, he immediately stopped in his tracks. An expression of intense greed appeared on his face as he gazed at the divine demon sword in the sky. If he could obtain this sword, how much would his battle prowess increase? If others lost 2 stars of strength, didn't that mean he gained 2 stars of strength? Hiss, the value was too great. A single sword was equivalent to the power of a nation. Ling Han smiled and said, Jade Drop Emperor, why don't we join forces and kill this cursed king first? What? Even the Jade Drop Emperor was confused. Wasn't this sowing discord a little too low? Ling Han continued. Even if you kill me, there will inevitably be internal strife in the end. But let me ask you, do you have the confidence to win? Definitely not. Ling Han answered his own question. That's why you have to join forces with me now. Since you're here as well, my sword has the ability to weaken the opponent's power. Since you have a 2-star power advantage, it won't be easy for you to kill the King of Curses. It won't be too late for you to kill me after you get rid of the King of Curses, right? Oh, he's right. He had to admit that the Jade Drop Emperor was very tempted at this moment. If he could borrow Ling Han's help to kill the Eternity Sky Emperor, then it wouldn't be difficult for him to kill Ling Han, even if his power was weakened by 2 stars. It would just take him a little longer. However, at that time, No one would be competing with him for the Empress position. Moreover, the Eternity Sky Majestic Empire and the Chaotic Stars Majestic Empire would both be in his hands. He would reach the pinnacle of his life with a beauty in his arms, unifying the joint peace planet and marrying the Empress of the Chaotic Stars Majestic Empire were the Jade Drop Emperor's lifelong goals. Now it seemed as if he could obtain these goals easily. How could he not be tempted? Seeing that the Jade Drop Emperor was tempted, the Eternity Sky Emperor hurriedly said, "Don't fall for this brat's tricks. He has many tricks up his sleeve, and there will be endless trouble in the future. We should eliminate him first." He was really anxious. If the Jade Drop Emperor betrayed him, then with a 2-star power advantage, he would definitely be defeated and killed. In that case, everything he had done would be for the benefit of others. Even after his death, his name would be carved on the stone of shame. This was a famous sucker, and everyone had to remember this in their hearts. This would serve as a warning to others. Meanwhile, the Jade Drop Emperor's heart was thumping wildly. This temptation was far too great. Moreover, it was definitely feasible. If he missed this opportunity, then even if he managed to capture the Empress of the Chaotic Stars Majestic Empire, he would still be constantly attacked by the Eternity Sky Majestic Empire in the future. Kill that despicable brat. The Eternity Sky Emperor hurriedly waved his hand and commanded his subordinates to surround and attack Ling Han. As long as they captured Ling Han, especially that sword god sword, they would be able to turn around and kill the Jade Drop Emperor. What a joke! Didn't he want to kill his mortal enemy and marry a beautiful, rich, and beautiful woman? However, Ling Han hadn't given him a chance to choose. Otherwise, perhaps he would have already attacked. The Jade Drop Emperor's eyes shifted. He was also slightly worried that Ling Han was full of tricks and tricks. The main thing was that this brat had countless tricks up his sleeves. Who knew how many more tricks he had up his sleeves? Thus, he also waved his hand and commanded his heavenly body tier elites to join in on the attack against Ling Han. We have to capture that sword. He used his divine sense to communicate with the Eternity Sky Emperor. Neither of them dared to attack rashly. Right now their focus was on that divine sword. Whoever managed to capture it would have an absolute advantage. Ling Han exhaled. His eloquence had finally allowed him to eliminate 2 powerful enemies. However, there were still as many as 7 elites at the consummate level of the heavenly body tier in the 2 majestic empires. This was still not easy to deal with. 7 is better than 9. Ling Han consoled himself in his mind. Wang, the divine sword god sword trembled slightly, unleashing heaven's might as it charged toward the heavenly body tier elites. He come to me. The Jade Drop Emperor suddenly moved. He didn't surround and attack Ling Han, because he wanted to capture the divine demon sword. Is that so? The Eternity Sky Emperor moved. He definitely wouldn't allow the Jade Drop Emperor to succeed. The 2 emperors held each other back, and they then reached out to grab the divine demon sword. Although their battle prowess had been restricted, the divine demon sword was also unable to help Ling Han any longer. Thus, a chaotic battle broke out between the 2 emperors. Once the divine demon sword was taken, everyone's power instantly recovered. They instantly breathed a sigh of relief, full of confidence. Ling Han broke into a smile. Do you think only the divine demon sword can weaken your cultivation? Wang. He also unleashed heaven's might. What? How come my power has weakened again? Strange. I'm already far enough away from that sword. The heavenly body tier elites were all dumbfounded. Why did this damnable feeling come back again? It's him. Someone pointed at Ling Han, trembling. The remaining people all turned to look at Ling Han. They were all dumbfounded. Can a human possess this kind of ability? You're fucking cheating. Ling Han gripped the wooden sword, and a menacing expression appeared on his face. Today, I'm going to slaughter everyone. He took the initiative to charge forward, unleashing the lightning sword technique. His figure was as fast as lightning, and he activated the tide of the ages. It was as if he was invincible. He raised his sword and slashed it down, drawing blood with every strike. Although the wooden sword wasn't a celestial tool, it was a powerful killing tool among netherworld tools. Its level was definitely astonishingly high. Even though it was damaged and couldn't regenerate on its own, its destructive power was still powerful. This was especially true against living beings. A terrifying murderous aura would surge out of the wooden sword, directly destroying their vitality. Meanwhile, the wooden sword absorbed blood, becoming more and more vibrant. The veined patterns on the sword became more and more sinister, and it was as if a demon master were coming back to life from within. Chapter 1422. Even Ling Han felt a chill run down his spine. If a demon master really came out of this sword, it would be very interesting. However, he didn't care anymore. His wife was the most important person in this world. Kill, kill, kill. He activated the star-plucking step, and the lightning sword technique was as fast as lightning. Added with the terrifying destructive power of the wooden sword, he was practically a killing machine. Blood and flesh flew everywhere. Everyone here was at the heavenly body tier, yet they still couldn't stop Ling Han. 19 elites at the high extreme of the heavenly body tier were continuously slaughtered by Ling Han. In less than half a day, 11 of them had already died. This battle would definitely be recorded in the history of the Joint Peace Planet. At least in the past billion years, this battle had never been so tragic. So many heavenly body tier elites had died in a single battle. Although there were still 7 elites at the consummate level of the heavenly body tier here, they couldn't stop Ling Han after their power had been suppressed by 2 stars. Most importantly, Ling Han's sword was too fast. It was like a bolt of lightning, and no one knew who he was attacking. They could only defend themselves. By the time the sword was unleashed, it was already too late to save them. They could only rely on themselves to defend themselves. Could the current high extreme still be a match for Ling Han? Damn it! The expressions of the Eternity Sky Emperor and Jade Drop Emperor changed drastically. Apart from them, no one else could stop Ling Han. Attack that mountain, the Jade Drop Emperor suddenly said. That's right. Previously, Ling Han clearly didn't need to fight head-on. However, he would rather be injured than ram into the stone door of the mountain. This was his weak spot. With this thought, everyone immediately came up with a countermeasure. They all turned their weapons around and fired at the small mountain. Ling Han's killing intent involuntarily became even more intense. Under the influence of the wooden sword in his hand, his eyes were bloodshot, and his head of black hair shot skywards. The clothes on his body were also torn apart, revealing his bulging muscles, which were like chunks of rock. He had already fused with the essence of a demon master, and now that he was affected by the demonic sword, he was completely bewitched. Black divine patterns appeared on his skin, exuding an evil aura. A being from the netherworld. Even though there was no passageway between the 2 realms, everyone immediately recognized it. The main reason was because the netherworld exerted too much pressure on the immortal realm. Even though this was a peaceful region, everyone knew about it. This kid has become bedeviled. Kill. Netherworld demons. Everyone has the right to kill them. Since he has turned into a devil, he will definitely be rejected by the heavens and earth of the immortal world, unable to use the power of laws. If he only has power, he might be inferior to even an ordinary cultivator at the medium extreme of the heavenly body tier. Instead of being alarmed, everyone was overjoyed. Ling Han had actually turned into a demon at this time, which was equivalent to cutting off his own arms. So what if I've become a demon? Ling Han laughed loudly, and a demonic pattern appeared in each of his eyes, covering his entire face. At this moment, it was as if he had been possessed by a demon master, exuding an aura that far surpassed that of the heavenly body tier. Unfortunately, just like the notionless saint, it was only an empty shell that didn't have the corresponding strength to back it up. You dare harm my people? Even if I become a 9 hells fiend, I'll crawl out of the abyss and cut down everything in my path. Ling Han laughed madly. Boom. The wooden sword actually began to burn. No, it wasn't the wooden sword that was burning, but rather the sword itself. These were black flames, the flames of death. Boom. Ling Han brandished his sword, and bursts of deathly flames flew out. An elite in the low extreme who had been observing the battle from afar couldn't dodge in time, and was actually touched by the deathly flames. He was so frightened that he hurriedly slapped out with his palm, wanting to extinguish the flames. However, he was shocked to discover that these flames couldn't be extinguished. Not only could they not be extinguished, but they also ignited his body, and what was burning was his life force. Life force was the key to all living beings. If one lost their life force, their lifespan would be severed, and they would only be able to live for 1,000 years, 100 years, or even only a few days. That elite in the low extreme was scared to death. He didn't want to die. Beside him, someone helped him. This was an elite in the medium extreme, but the result of his help was that he himself was also ignited. Fuck. This deathly flames are contagious. At this moment, everyone felt a chill run down their spines. The two people who had been burned wanted to ask for help from others, but everyone avoided them like snakes and scorpions. Your Imperial Majesty. The two of them pleaded with the Eternity Sky Emperor. They were both elites of the Eternity Sky Majestic Empire. The Eternity Sky Emperor suddenly withdrew his hand and pressed his palm toward the two of them. Boom! A terrifying power surged, and the deathly flames were actually suppressed. However, they didn't extinguish. This caused even the Eternity Sky Emperor's expression to change, and an expression of wariness appeared on his face. From this scene, it could be deduced that he could resist the invasion of the deathly flames, but he had to defend with all his might. Otherwise, the deathly flames would burn him, and once he was burned it would snowball. He would suffer more and more losses, and he would have no choice but to face the deathly flames all day long. As expected, this brat couldn't be underestimated. He had a new trick up his sleeve. Brother Chong, let's kill this brat first, the Jade Drop Emperor said. He had also made up his mind. Right now, he felt that Ling Han posed the greatest threat, even surpassing the Eternity Sky Emperor. He had to be killed as soon as possible. All right. The Eternity Sky Emperor nodded. Both of them were emperors of the empire, so they were very decisive. Once they had made up their minds, they wouldn't waver, and they both charged toward Ling Han. Wang! Ling Han unleashed heaven's might, and the power of the two emperors also plummeted. As long as one didn't surpass Ling Han by an entire major cultivation realm, they would definitely be affected by heaven's might. Of course, if one's battle prowess was high enough, they would also be immune to it for a limited period of time. For example, during the Prodigy battle, all of the 10-star geniuses had techniques that could resist heaven's might. However, those were only 10-star geniuses. You wasn't, and neither was the Jade Drop Emperor. What a brat! The two emperors couldn't hide their shock. It was one thing for this divine sword to be able to weaken their power, but Ling Han was actually able to do so as well. This caused a chill to run down their spines. As long as their cultivation levels were the same, who could be a match for Ling Han? Even 4-star geniuses would be weakened to 2-star geniuses. The two emperors finally stopped holding back, and they unleashed their ultimate techniques. They were far too powerful. One of them could move to restrain Ling Han, while the other could charge up a powerful technique. The attacks that they unleashed were incredibly terrifying, and very soon, Ling Han was riddled with wounds. Even the indestructible true fluid couldn't heal his wounds. There were only 10 drops in total, and using them continuously would cause the effects to worsen. When the last drop of indestructible true fluid was used up, it was as if Ling Han had reached the end of his rope. Die! The two emperors joined forces, and unexpectedly, the water and fire didn't repel each other. Instead, they exploded with even stronger might. The waves of water and fire merged, forming a pillar that shot toward Ling Han's chest. Behind him was that stone door. Most likely, with the combined might of the two emperors, and the stone door no longer had the power of the nation to supply it with, it would probably be blasted out with a single strike. Ling Han gritted his teeth. He channeled the indestructible heavens scroll with all his might, forming a supreme defense. If he cultivated it to great accomplishment, he would be able to block a strike from a Genesis tier. And now, a strike from an Eternal River tier would definitely be no problem. Pung! Ling Han crossed his arms in front of him, and the pillar formed from water and fire slammed into his body, creating a terrifying shock wave. This was not just power, but also the regulations of heaven and earth that the two emperors had grasped. However, Ling Han blocked all of them. Chapter 1424. In terms of domineering words, even Ling Han admitted that he was inferior to the Rain Emperor. He was a natural monarch, and added with the fact that he had the world in his heart, his domineering aura was peerless. It was as if the Rain Emperor was born to be a king, high and mighty. Under his domineering words, everyone felt their scalps go numb, and they felt an urge to retreat. This was the true might of a king. You've only just advanced to the consummate level, yet you still dare to be so arrogant, the Eternity Sky Emperor said disdainfully as he slashed out with his sword. He refused to believe that the Rain Emperor was as difficult to kill as Ling Han. Ling Han channeled heaven's might, and the Rain Emperor charged out. The two brothers teamed up in this way. Peng the Rain Emperor still used the Son of Heaven fist technique, but this fist technique had been elevated to a whole new level. It was as if the whole world was listening to him as he punched out at the Eternity Sky Emperor. It was clear that although the Rain Emperor had obtained the inheritance of the Eternal River Emperor, he hadn't given up on his own path. On the contrary, he only used this inheritance to rapidly increase his cultivation level, and he still walked on his own path. This was a true king tier, disdaining to walk the path that others had arranged for them. Ling Han had a feeling that if the Rain Emperor had followed his own path, he might have already reached the Eternal River tier by now. However, if that was the case, he could only follow the path of his predecessors, and at most become the second strongest. Boom! The Rain Emperor and the Eternity Sky Emperor clashed. They clearly didn't have a god tool, yet the Rain Emperor was even more domineering. After throwing out a punch, he continued to throw out punches, completely unconcerned about how powerful the god tool in his opponent's hands was. This was his battle style. Regardless of whether his opponent was stronger or weaker than him, he would definitely have the upper hand in terms of aura. Meanwhile, Ling Han targeted the Jade Drop Emperor. The Rain Emperor didn't have powerful defenses, and he could revive again even if he died. Naturally, he wouldn't allow him to be attacked by two emperors at the same time. The four elites fought in a chaotic battle. Ling Han and his brother were completely at a disadvantage. There was nothing that could be done. Even if the Rain Emperor's current battle prowess could surpass 6 stars, merely his cultivation level was 3 stars lower than the Rain Emperor's. Added with the fact that the Eternity Sky Emperor was a 4-star genius, and he also had the power of the nation as well as a god tool. Even if Ling Han had suppressed his battle prowess by 2 stars, he was still slightly stronger than the Rain Emperor. However, he was only slightly stronger. Otherwise, the Rain Emperor did not have a freakish physique and recovery ability like Ling Han's, and would have long since been beaten into a pulp. However, the present situation was not much better. That was because even more elites had joined the battle, and there was no lack of elites at the consummate level of the heavenly body tier. Su Ran had indeed played a role, and attracted the attention of one elite at the consummate level of the heavenly body tier. But it was only one. The two brothers were bathed in blood. Though the majority of the attacks were borne by Ling Han, the Rain Emperor only needed to take a single hit to be severely wounded. Ling Han and the Rain Emperor swallowed alchemical pills madly. But if they took too many alchemical pills, they would also develop a resistance to the effects of the pills. Their rate of recovery became slower and slower, and they were already at the end of their rope. Were there any more reinforcements? Ling Han shook his head. Unless the Stone Emperor or the North Emperor arrived, they would naturally be invincible in the heavenly body tier with the precious tools they possessed. In fact, they would even be able to put up a fight if they encountered low-level Eternal River tier elites. However, putting aside the fact that they were on the Joint Peace planet, even if they were on the Cloud Apex planet, it would still be useless. Where could they find reinforcements? What to do? What to do? Second brother, you should return first, Ling Han said. He could still hold on for a while. However, although the Rain Emperor's cultivation level had skyrocketed, his defenses and recovery ability were no match for Ling Han's. When he said return, he was naturally referring to entering the Black Tower. There's no rush, the Rain Emperor refused. He knew that Ling Han wanted to save Empress Luan Xing, and he also knew that she would be one of his future sisters-in-law. Thus, he would also fight until the very last moment. Right now he could still fight. Humph, the two of you are destined to die here, the Eternity Sky Emperor said with a cold chuckle. You two brothers can accompany each other in the netherworld, the Jade Drop Emperor said, his killing intent surging. Boom, boom, boom. The dozen or so heavenly body tier elites attacked in unison, shaking heaven and earth. Pung! Ling Han and the Rain Emperor were both sent flying. Blood spurted from their bodies, and they crashed heavily onto the ground. Neither of them had reached the peak stage of the heavenly body tier. So how could they resist so many elites? It was already an incredible miracle that they could hold on until now. The Eternity Sky Emperor sneered coldly, the Jade Drop Emperor sneered coldly, and the heavenly body tier elites of the two majestic empires all smiled coldly. Only Chu Qiushue, the left minister, and the others wore expressions of despair. They could naturally tell that Ling Han and the Rain Emperor couldn't hold on for much longer. The Chaotic Star's majestic empire was finally about to reach the final step because a traitor had appeared. They were unwilling. Ling Han crawled to his feet and was just about to draw the Rain Emperor into the Black Tower. If worst came to worst, he would just have to use the Black Tower. He didn't care anymore. However, right at this moment he suddenly faltered. Phew, this was a very soft sound. If one didn't pay attention, they wouldn't have noticed it at all. However, how sensitive was Ling Han's divine sense? He immediately pricked up his ears. This was because this sound was coming from the mountain. This was the sound of a heartbeat. Previously, there hadn't been any sound coming from the mountain, but now there was the sound of a heartbeat. What did this mean? Empress Luan Xing had exited her meditative state. She was finally coming out of seclusion. Ping, another sound rang out. This time it was even louder. Boom! A pillar of light shot out from the mountain, reaching into the clouds. This time, everyone noticed it. The Empress was coming out of seclusion. In an instant, everyone stopped what they were doing and stared at that stone door. Pung! The stone door was violently smashed open, and crushed stones flew everywhere. Pa 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 pa, they flew in all directions. This was extremely terrifying, forcing everyone to dodge or defend. When the chaos ended, they saw a woman with peerless elegance standing at the entrance. She had a beauty that could cause the downfall of a city and country. Empress Luan Xing. Why was she alone? Wasn't she in seclusion with the 9 kings? However, Ling Han knew that Empress Luan Xing was alone. This meant that she had successfully broken through. Her 9 bodies had returned, and her cultivation level had advanced further. Pinnacle level of the heavenly body tier. He breathed a sigh of relief. Actually, it didn't matter even if Empress Luan Xing hadn't broken through. As long as he found her, he could put her into the Black Tower. Your Majesty, Chu Qiushue, the left minister, and the others finally had a pillar of support. They all knelt down. They had never felt so weak before. Empress Luan Xing, Eternity Sky Emperor and Jade Drop Emperor's eyes narrowed. This was an elite that could truly rival them. Even the Eternity Sky Emperor had been forced into submission by her with a stone tablet, and had handed over the 9 Tribulations sword. Humph! Now you no longer have the power of the nation, but the power of the nation that we can draw is at least 30% stronger. You have no chance at all. The Jade Drop Emperor immediately said, Follow me, and I can even give the throne to you. If we join forces, the whole world will be within our reach. Bullshit. You immediately jumped up. What he can give you, I can also give you, and I'll definitely do better than him. At this moment, how were they still 2 great emperors? They were just men fighting for a woman's affections. Quang. Before Empress Luan Xing could speak, thunderclouds gathered in the sky. The heavenly tribulation was quickly forming. Heavenly tribulation? That wasn't right. Empress Luan Xing was clearly already at the consummate level of the heavenly body tier. If she faced another heavenly tribulation, hiss. Eternal river tier. Chapter 1425. Empress Luan Xing stood proudly. Although the heavenly tribulation was about to descend, she was completely unafraid, and merely swept her gaze over the surroundings. The city had already been destroyed, and the totem had naturally disappeared. As long as she couldn't sense the power of the nation, She naturally knew that the chaotic star's majestic empire had already been flattened. She didn't care about this. What she cared about was the people. The Empress's gaze stopped on Ling Han. When she saw that he was bathed in blood, and even his life force had been injured, she revealed an expression of pain and fury. Needless to say, Ling Han had definitely fought a bloody battle to protect her. She knew that Ling Han had the Black Tower, which was the most reliable defense. As long as he hid inside, even saints wouldn't be able to detect him. However, for her, Ling Han guarded the city gates without retreating. For a woman, what more could she ask for? There was an aura of primal chaos on the Empress's face, but everyone here was a heavenly body tier elite. Which one of them couldn't see through her disguise? They were all jealous. Who had ever seen the Empress stare at a man with an expression of pain and pity? Even Chu Qiuxue and the others cursed in their minds. Ling Han and Ding Lian hadn't lied. As expected, the Empress had an affair with Ling Han. However, the question was, how had they hooked up? One had to know that the Empress and Ling Han had only met a few times. However, how could they know that the Empress was a member of the Nine Snake tribe and could create 9 doppelgangers? One of the doppelgangers had already interacted with Ling Han. In the end, the Empress had been locked up and forced to have children with Ling Han, and she had almost raped Ling Han. The Eternity Sky Emperor and Jade Drop Emperor naturally knew this as well, and their fury instantly burned 10 times. No, 100 times, 1,000 times, 10,000 times. Previously, when they heard Ling Han call Empress Luan Xing his wife, they felt uncomfortable. However, when they thought about the Empress's personality and way of doing things, they believed that Ling Han was just wishful thinking. How could such a cold and noble Empress fall in love with a man? Even if she had to fall in love, it should be with them. However, reality gave them a resounding slap in the face. That loving gaze caused their hearts to shatter. No, their balls to shatter. But how could an emperor have a heart of glass? Their disappointment quickly turned into a soaring killing intent. So what if you fall in love with him? All you have to do is to kill this man. In the future, when you get him, you will fall in love with him after a long time. Will you still have to worry about not getting his heart? Kill, 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 kill this young man. The 2 divine emperors were seething with killing intent. Although they had tried their best to kill Ling Han before, it was because they were afraid of Ling Han's potential. But now, because of jealousy, even if Ling Han didn't have the strength to truss a chicken, they still wanted to kill him as soon as possible. Boom, they attacked ferociously, and did not hold back because of the Empress's appearance. The reason was very simple. The heavenly tribulation was about to descend, so how could Empress Luan Xing have the time to deal with it? Moreover, even if she successfully survived the heavenly tribulation, that would only happen half a day later. By that time, it would be too late. You're courting death. Empress Luan Xing glared at him, her killing intent overflowing. She raised her right hand and boom, 4 heavenly bodies appeared behind her. This was no different from the consummate level of the heavenly body tier. But the aura that she exuded was 100 times, or even 1,000 times, stronger than that of the Eternity Sky Emperor and the Jade Drop Emperor combined. Heavens! These 2 divine emperors had already reached the peak stage of the heavenly body tier. So how could they be so much stronger than them? Pung! Pung! The 2 divine emperors were sent flying at the same time. Mist of blood sprayed from their bodies, their faces as pale as paper. Are you alright? Empress Luan Xing did not even spare them a glance. Her eyes did not move away from Ling Han at all, and there was an indescribable heartache on her beautiful face. Back, back, back. Chu Qiuxue and the others could not believe their eyes. Meanwhile, on the side of the Jade Drop Majestic Empire and the Eternity Sky Majestic Empire, everyone was going crazy with jealousy. Who hadn't heard of the Empress Beauty? Now that they had seen her for themselves, they felt that she was even more beautiful than the rumors. This was because no matter how much they imagined, they would not be able to capture even 1/10,000th of the Empress Beauty. However, such an exquisite beauty was actually showing such a concerned expression toward a man. Such a pitiful gaze was enough to drive them crazy. That brat will die a horrible death. However, how could Empress Luan Xing be so powerful? She was too powerful, wasn't she? Ling Han smiled and said, As long as you're fine. Fuck, still flaunting their affection. Aren't they afraid of dying faster? The Eternity Sky Emperor and Jade Drop Emperor were extremely jealous to begin with. Now that the two of them were lovey-dovey, they felt as if they had been fed a handful of dog food. They were already seriously injured, and after being provoked like this, they immediately vomited blood. Empress Wanxing nodded and said, "I'll make those who hurt you pay the price." "All right." Ling Han nodded. He knew that after Empress Wanxing had broken through, at least within this galaxy, she was already invincible. Naturally, he wouldn't say anything like being careful. Meanwhile, Chu Qiuxue and the others felt aggrieved in their hearts. "Your Majesty, didn't you see that they were still here? You couldn't just have one person in your eyes. At the very least, you should have taken a glance at them and said something along the lines of, 'You guys have worked hard.' Right? But if Her Majesty Empress could be like what they thought, would she still be Her Majesty Empress?" Clang! Right at this moment, a bolt of lightning struck down, landing directly on Empress Wanxing's head. The Empress raised a hand. "Pa!" This bolt of lightning was actually forcibly shattered by her. Fuck, was it real or fake? That was heavenly tribulation, and you could fucking shatter it with a single strike? Were you still human? Ling Han's eyes lit up. Empress Wanxing definitely hadn't just entered into the pinnacle level, but had instead reached the peak stage of the pinnacle level. How could she possibly reach the peak stage of the pinnacle level right after entering into the pinnacle level? That naturally had something to do with her 9 doppelgangers. Others could only break through once, while she could be said to have broken through 10 times. Then, what was so strange about her rushing to the peak stage of the pinnacle level in a single breath? Now, she had the power equivalent to the early stage of the low extreme of the Eternal River tier. So if she went to pass the heavenly tribulation of the early stage of the pinnacle level of the heavenly body tier, wouldn't that be easy? Her power had increased by a whole 1,000 times. Quang, quang, quang. Divine thunder rang out incessantly, bolt after bolt of lightning striking down. It was incredibly terrifying. But what was even more terrifying was Empress Wanxing. With a single punch, she could easily shatter any kind of lightning that descended. This caused one's scalp to go numb, and their limbs to go cold. They had never seen anyone pass the heavenly tribulation so easily. Alright, that was because they had never seen Ling Han pass the heavenly tribulation. If it weren't for the fact that he still had to temper his godly bones, he could completely treat the divine thunder as a massage. "You people invaded my world, this, I can let. You people killed my people, this, I can also tolerate. But you people actually wanted to hurt him, this, I cannot tolerate." As Empress Wanxing spoke, she bathed in the lightning tribulation as she walked towards the Eternity Sky Emperor and Jade Drop Emperor. Her beautiful face was completely cold, and killing intent seethed. "Who are you trying to fool? Occupying your kingdom, killing your people, and you can tolerate." But since Her Imperial Majesty is using these two things as a comparison, what does she mean? Ling Han is more important than her kingdom, her people. The Eternity Sky Emperor and Jade Drop Emperor were fed a mouthful of dog food, and there was no need to mention how uncomfortable the taste was. Meanwhile, Chu Qiuxue and the others wore strange expressions. They had fought with their lives on the line, yet the Empress was completely unconcerned. They had all bled and sweated for the majestic empire. So why was it that only Ling Han had received the Empress's favor and pity? Sigh. Aren't you afraid of making the citizens of the entire empire sad by saying this? That's right, the chaotic star's majestic empire is gone now. Reading on one's phone is more refreshing. Chapter 1426. You've touched my reverse scale, Empress Wanxing said menacingly. She suddenly waved her hand and boom, an irresistible power surged over. Pa pa pa. Instantly, a dozen heavenly body tier elites were blasted into a mist of blood. Poo-pee-you. The Eternity Sky Emperor and Jade Drop Emperor both vomited blood. They exchanged a look, both stunned. Didn't you not pass the heavenly tribulation? How are you so powerful? They were both experienced people, so they naturally knew that after passing the heavenly tribulation, one's strength would increase slightly. Correspondingly, the might of the heavenly tribulation would also increase, maintaining a powerful pressure. Precisely because of this, 7 out of 10 people who passed the heavenly tribulation might not be able to pass and die at the final threshold. However, Empress Wuxia had overturned this understanding. She was indescribably powerful. With their cultivation level and power of the nation, they couldn't even withstand a single strike from Empress Wuxia. How was this possible? She didn't have the power of the nation to draw anymore. The two emperors were extremely bitter. It was too late, too late. They charged at Ling Han. If it weren't for this man, the result would definitely be different. They could have broken through the door long ago, and then Empress Wuxia wouldn't have been able to break through. Moreover, if she was disturbed during seclusion, it would cause a huge backlash. Empress Wuxia would definitely be severely injured and would be easily captured. Previously, Ding Lian dared to break through the restriction and wanted to enter because he knew this. Otherwise, he was only at the high extreme, so how would he dare to have designs on the Empress? Looking at Empress Wuxia's attitude, not only was she going to kill them, but she was also unwilling to kill them immediately. They were both people who had been in high positions for a long time, and knew that people like them couldn't change their minds once they made up their minds. Thus, they had no intention of begging for mercy. Instead, they all targeted Ling Han. Even if they died, they would drag Ling Han down with them. If I can't have you, this brat can't have you either. Die! The two emperors exploded at the same time. They completely awakened their ancestral tools, unleashing the strongest might of the heavenly body tier. Using their bodies to control their weapons, they blasted at Ling Han. This was their resplendent strike. Unfortunately, although Empress Wuxia was still at the heavenly body tier, her battle prowess had soared into the eternal river tier. An eternal river tier against a heavenly body tier. This was an absolute suppression. Pung! The Empress only casually raised her hand, and the two emperors were instantly immobilized, unable to move even a single inch. They struggled with all their might, but to no avail. They couldn't break free at all. You dare to injure my beloved? You're all seeking death. Empress Wuxia's black hair fluttered in the wind, and her robes fluttered in the wind. Even in her fury, she was still astonishingly beautiful, and no one felt any fear from her. I am very angry, very angry. As soon as these words came out, everyone's shock increased once again. Previously, though everyone knew about this, Empress Wuxia had still spoken quite subtly after all. But now, she directly referred to him as her beloved. Her Imperial Majesty the Empress was really a passionate person, and did not conceal her feelings at all. Damn, I was fed another mouthful of dog food. Empress Wuxia raised her hand and slapped the air. The Eternity Sky Emperor and Jade Drop Emperor were both slapped in the face at the same time. The sound of the slap was crisp and clear. So what if they were emperors? Half of their faces instantly swelled up, and they staggered as if they were drunk. I'm going to tear you into pieces, and then feed you to the wild dogs. The Empress was beyond furious. Her fury didn't subside, and instead burned even more fiercely. In the beginning, she was only concerned about Ling Han's injuries, but as this anxiety disappeared, she thought of even more things. What if she came out too late, and Ling Han protected her with his life, and died in the end? When she thought of this, the Empress's eyes became bloodshot, and her delicate fists were tightly clenched. Every strand of her hair was filled with killing intent, and every gaze was filled with fury. If Ling Han died, she would slaughter all the beings on the Joint Peace Planet to accompany Ling Han in death. Who the hell are you? Pa pa pa. Empress Wuxia continued to slap them in a frenzy. She didn't hold back at all, and with each slap, the two emperors' faces became swollen and bruised. After a few more slaps, they couldn't hold on any longer. Their broken teeth were pulled out one after another, and they were covered in blood. Their hair was disheveled, and they didn't have a shred of their dignity as emperors anymore. Right now they were no different from wild dogs. However, Empress Wuxia didn't have the slightest intention of stopping. Thunder rumbled, drowning out their screams, but the slaps were incredibly clear. Pa pa pa. Empress Wuxia became more and more furious. She really wanted to kill these two people, But how could directly killing them vent her anger? Thus, she controlled her power. But her eyes were fixed on the other heavenly body tier elites of the two majestic empires. With a tap of her finger paw, a heavenly body tier elite was forcibly turned into a mist of blood, both his body and spirit destroyed. This was the power of the strongest king tier, invincible among those at the same cultivation level. Long live Her Majesty! Chu Qiuxue and the others all cheered, their scalps tingling with excitement. This was their king, killing one with each step, invincible in this world. The two emperors exchanged a look, and a sliver of sorrow involuntarily appeared on their faces. The gap between them and Empress Luanxing was already unimaginably wide. In fact, they couldn't even die a quick and painless death. A king couldn't be humiliated. The two emperors roared in fury and began to counterattack. Of course, they didn't want to fight to the death. Instead, they wanted to use the opportunity of attacking the empress to attract the heavenly tribulation to themselves. According to the regulations of heaven and earth, actively attacking the person undergoing the heavenly tribulation would also drag themselves into the heavenly tribulation. Undergoing the heavenly tribulation meant that they could control their own life and death. Hong long long, the tribulation clouds began to multiply, adjusting their might according to the cultivation level of the two emperors. Empress Luanxing's eyes narrowed. Do you want to commit suicide? Quang, divine lightning descended, this time targeting the two emperors. Expressions of relief appeared on the faces of the two emperors. This time, they could die a quick and painless death. King Tears had the pride of King Tears. Even if they were to die, they would die standing, dying with dignity. Pa large hand appeared, enveloping the two emperors like a jade mountain, astonishingly beautiful. The divine lightning descended, yet it was forcibly lifted by this large hand, and didn't strike the Eternity Sky Emperor or Jade Drop Emperor. This was actually Empress Luanxing's attack. Who would have thought of this? Why would Empress Luanxing protect them? Wasn't it her who had forced the two emperors into a desperate situation? However, in the next instant, everyone came to a realization. The empress didn't want them to die too easily. Instead, she wanted to slowly slap them to death, one slap at a time. Women definitely couldn't be offended. This was too ruthless. However, heavenly tribulation definitely couldn't be helped. Quang, when the next heavenly tribulation descended, its might increased by a whole tenfold. This was the might of heaven and earth. And it was also a warning that no one could violate the regulations of heaven and earth. Those who violated them would be punished. The might of the heavenly tribulation increased tenfold. And with Empress Luanxing's battle prowess, it wasn't that she couldn't resist it. However, this was only the beginning. Next, the might of the heavenly tribulation would increase by 100, 1,000, 10,000 times. And it would continue to increase until the troublemaker was killed. Thus, even someone as proud as Empress Luanxing didn't dare to make another move. Chapter 1428. The Empress decided to be a hands-off boss, so Ling Han could only work harder and help the left and right ministers deal with government affairs, restoring the territory of the chaotic Star's majestic empire, while taking over the territories of the other two majestic empires. This was not something that could be completed in a day or two. It would take at least 8 to 10 years. Thus, Ling Han also chose to be a hands-off boss. He couldn't be bothered either. Ling Han asked Empress Luanxing to remove the restrictions on Su Ran, and the Nine Hells ice coffin was naturally returned to the national treasury. Su Ran's beauty had also recovered. She was a beautiful woman who looked to be only in her 20s. Her name was Chen Xiao, and she was quiet, giving others a very comfortable feeling. No wonder she could subdue Su Ran. One had to know that Su Ran was also a prodigy of his generation, reaching the consummate level of the heavenly body tier in just 200,000 years. This was enough to make countless people die of envy. Of course, compared to Supreme King tiers like the Stone Emperor and the North Emperor, he was still much inferior. He was just barely qualified to enter the Star Sand Martial Arts Academy. But that was hard to say. Ling Han brought Empress Luanxing back to the Great Ling Empire, and instantly, the whole capital was in an uproar. What was going on? The empress was actually abducted by Ling Han. Though they were nominally a vassal state of the chaotic star's majestic empire, the empress was their mistress. There was a saying that when one married, one would follow her husband. Didn't that mean that the whole chaotic star's majestic empire was a dowry? Moreover, now that the whole world was united, wasn't the Great Ling Empire the biggest? Their empress was awesome. Some people were happy, but there were also people who were unhappy. Naturally, it was the heavenly phoenix divine maiden. She had long known that Empress Luan Xing was incredibly beautiful, but only when she saw her with her own eyes did she know how enchanting she was. Even as a woman, her heart couldn't help but be swayed, unable to control herself. She was worried that Ling Han's soul would be completely taken away by this empress. However, after the empress held her hand and whispered a few words to her, the heavenly phoenix divine maiden's attitude immediately changed. She didn't have the slightest bit of rejection towards the empress, and instead affectionately called her big sister. Fuck, subdued just like that? As expected of the mistress of the imperial harem. Though Hunyo's battle prowess was high, she only knew how to eat, play, and act shamelessly. The empress of the chaotic star's majestic empire would be the one to be the big sister. She would really be able to control the situation. Heavenly Phoenix Divine Maiden, how valiant are you? In the past, you even beat Ling Han to the point of risking his life in an ancient site. He would rather risk his life to cultivate a divine technique and suppress this fierce woman. But now, in front of the Empress, you are as obedient as a cat. Sigh, everything has its vanquisher. The Empress's charm could not be described with words. To say nothing of the Heavenly Phoenix Divine Maiden's submission, even Ling Han's 2 brothers and 6 disciples were all wholeheartedly convinced by her. Only the Rain Emperor's domineering aura could just about disregard her. There were many things to be done, and Ling Han planned to stay in the Great Ling Empire for another 50 years. After that, he would set off for the Long Light Galaxy, and then take a detour to the Four Directions Galaxy. In these 50 years, he wanted to leave a seed for the Great Ling Empire. When he returned in the future, it definitely wouldn't be a declining Great Ling Empire, but a Great Ling Empire full of vitality. He set out to find a successor to the throne. Now the whole Joint Peace planet was in her hands. In fact, as long as she was willing, she could conquer a great many planets in the vicinity. But she threw everything to Ling Han, looking like she wanted to be a good wife and mother. Ling Han was not suited to govern, either, so he still threw everything to his cousin. In any case, he had the left and right ministers, and the 5 generals to assist him, so there was no need to worry about any problems. But he, Empress Luan Xing, and the other elites would have to leave after 50 years, and there was no one to suppress the left and right ministers. And what would they do? Thus, he definitely had to produce a batch of elites as soon as possible. They could be completely trusted. After 50 years, there were not many people that Ling Han planned to bring to the Star Sand Martial Arts Academy, because the conditions to enter were too harsh. At least, they had to cultivate to the pinnacle level once, and this was enough to eliminate 999,999% of the people in the world. And this was only the minimum condition. After that, he would choose 100 of the strongest prodigies, and they would become kings among kings. Under this kind of selection, even the North Emperor and Stone Emperor did not dare to pat their chests and say that they would definitely be able to enter. Thus, Ling Han only planned to bring a few people who had cultivated to the pinnacle level. Aside from him, there was Empress Luan Xing, the Heavenly Phoenix Divine Maiden, the Rain Emperor, Ding Ping, Ju Yao and Su Ran, big brother Feng Puyin, and third brother Mu Rongqing would stay in the Great Ling Empire this time. Ling Han set out to nurture talented people. Feng Puyin and Mu Rongqing also gave up. Pinnacle level was not something that could be achieved through hard work. The most important thing was still talent. Without the slightest bit of talent, it would be useless even if they worked millions and millions of times harder. Humans were born to be unfair. They cultivated in seclusion in the Black Tower, and after a mere 7 years, The two of them broke through to the Sun-Moon tier one after another. Ling Han then took out berserk blood spirit pills for them to improve. Even without the tempering of immortal flames, they could take one pill every 3 years at most. 50 years' time was more or less enough to send the two of them to the peak stage of the Sun-Moon tier. And it was even possible for them to break through to the heavenly body tier. As long as they reached the heavenly body tier, they would be on equal footing with the left minister and the others, and they would not have to worry about not being able to control them. Meanwhile, Kong Xiao Yuan and Yin Yong Wang furiously refined alchemical pills. Ling Han gave them a mission, and that was to become level 8 alchemists before he left. The cultivation of Jiang Yefeng and the others also advanced by leaps and bounds. Everyone could take berserk blood spirit pills, and they could advance by a subminor level in 3 years. More importantly, the leaves of the reincarnation tree could be used in tea. This could help one comprehend Tao. There were berserk blood spirit pills for cultivation, reincarnation tree tea for comprehending Tao, and reincarnation tree tea. 1 day was equivalent to 1 year. As long as one advanced to the Sun-Moon tier, 1 year would definitely be different, and 3 years would be a great change. What made Ling Han depressed was that there were not enough red jade divine king fruits. There was not enough porridge, and there were not enough berserk blood spirit pills to distribute. Moreover, the reincarnation tree could only support 10 people cultivating at the same time. Now that there were so many people who wanted to comprehend Tao, they would have to line up. Thankfully, there were reincarnation tree leaves that could be used in tea to help one comprehend Tao. This solved a big problem. Moreover, there were 3 great alchemists here, and one was even the Alchemy Emperor. Joint Peace Planet was so big, and after ransacking the treasure vaults of 2 majestic empires, Ling Han also had a large number of natural treasures, and refined a large number of godly pills. Although they couldn't compare to the berserk blood spirit pill, they were still very astonishing. Thus, the strength of the entire Great Ling Empire was still rising at a crazy speed. Ling Han, the Heavenly Phoenix Divine Maiden, and the Rain Emperor's strength was also soaring. With Ling Han, the Alchemy Emperor, there was no need to worry about not having enough alchemical pills to eat. Previously, when Ling Han had entered the Medicine King's cave, he had madly plundered a large number of godly medicines. Medicine, he squandered the godly medicines in his hands. What was the point of keeping them? It would be a waste if he didn't eat them. On the other side, all the level 10 godly metal was continuously being sent over, and they even left Joint Peace Planet to carry out a large purchase across the entire galaxy. This was naturally handed over to the Mo Clan Trading Company. Ling Han had once owed them a favor, so he would take special care of any business they had. 50 years passed in the blink of an eye. Only then did he know the secret of Ling Han being able to advance into the heavenly body tier, before he was 100 years old. With the reincarnation tree in hand, the world was mine. Unfortunately, none of them had eternal river tier-level cultivation techniques. Thus, they all placed breaking through to the eternal river tier in the Star Sand Martial Arts Academy. There was a great saint-level elite overseeing the academy, and even the notionless saint had to address him as senior. Speaking of the notionless saint, this former saint had already broken through to the heavenly body tier. This speed was so fast that even Ling Han was envious. The main reason was that his cultivation conditions in this life were really too good. 5-element body, the experience of a saint, the reincarnation tree, and the berserk blood spirit pill. Just one of these would allow one's cultivation level to advance by leaps and bounds. What more when all 4 were on a single person? This person also wanted to enter the Star Sand Martial Arts Academy, and shamelessly competed with them, these young people. Thus, the members on this trip included Ling Han, Empress Luan Xing, the Heavenly Phoenix Divine Maiden, the Rain Emperor, Ding Ping, Ju Yao, Su Ran, and the Notionless Saint. Additionally, Chen Xiao Li Ruodong, Ding Zhiji, the Old Ginseng and Rabbit would also accompany them. Though they couldn't enter the Star Sand Martial Arts Academy, they couldn't let their families be separated either. As for the old ginseng and rabbit, they were purely there as bystanders. They were going to bring disaster to the Star Sand Martial Arts Academy. At first, Ling Han wanted to stop them, but when he thought about it, there was also that damned large black dog that would also be going. Even if these two people combined, they probably wouldn't be as destructive as a single toe of that large black dog. Xiao, the cloud-piercing shuttle soared into the sky, flying towards the pitch-black universe. Though there were no super elites guarding the joint peace planet now, as long as there was no news of Empress Luan Xing's death, there definitely wouldn't be a single person that dared to cause trouble there. Otherwise, when the Empress returned and settled scores with them, who would be able to stop her? 2 years later, the cloud-piercing shuttle arrived at the Cloud Apex planet. Ling Han first went to the Treasure Forest Pavilion. He had promised to teach Han Xinyan the Berserk Blood Spirit Pill, and when he had left previously, she still hadn't mastered it. Moreover, he was a man of his word. Thus, after more than 70 years, he once again came to this place. He walked side by side with Empress Luan Xing, and brought her to admire the ancient city's scenery and people. He was not in a hurry, and only arrived after a long time. Are the two of you looking to buy something? Grandmaster Ling? A shop assistant had just walked up to them when he recognized Ling Han. Instantly, a smile spread across his face, and there was a genuine delight on his face. Ling Han had represented the On-Yuan branch of the Lin clan, and won second place in the clan competition. This was an astonishing result, and also a great honor. Even the shop assistants here felt honored. Ling Han smiled and asked, "Is Madame Lin here?" "Hee, Madame has been waiting for you all this time," the shop assistant immediately said with a smile. Oh, Ling Han was surprised. Could it be that Lin Yuqi had been waiting for him to tutor Han Xinyan all this time? At first, Madame had already been transferred back to the main clan, but because of Grandmaster Ling, she has been staying here all this time. She said that you would return one day. As expected, Madame was right, and you did not disappoint Madame, the shop assistant said. Ling Han couldn't help but glance at Empress Luan Xing. This wife had better not be jealous. However, the Empress was not the heavenly phoenix divine maiden. Her expression was warm and gentle, and there was not the slightest hint of anger on her face. Of course, under the shroud of the aura of primal chaos, ordinary people could not see her appearance at all. Otherwise, the shop assistant would not have been able to speak so fluently. "Grandmaster Ling, please wait a moment. I will inform Madame right away." The shop assistant left, and very quickly ran back. He led Ling Han and Empress Luan Xing to the inner court. However, he did not have the right to enter the inner court. There was a young servant standing here. Under the guidance of this young servant, they entered the inner court and saw Lin Yuqi in a small garden. This gorgeously dressed woman was currently lying lazily on a long bench. She was not wearing any shoes or socks, and her 2 small feet were as beautiful as jade. They were smooth and exquisite, like a wondrous scene in the mortal world. "Yo, handsome little brother, you finally know to come to big sister." Chapter 1430. A leopard never changes its spots. In the blink of an eye, almost 100 years had passed, yet Lin Yuqi had not changed in the slightest. For a heavenly body tier, this amount of time might not be the blink of an eye, but it was at most equivalent to a few days for an ordinary person. Don't misunderstand. I'm only here to see if Han Xinyan has successfully refined the Berserk Blood Spirit Pill. I'll be leaving soon. Ling Han didn't want to provoke this bewitching woman. Lin Yuqi didn't even turn around and said, "Why are you in such a hurry? Could it be that you're going to the Star Sand Martial Arts Academy?" Even she knows. Ling Han was slightly surprised. Though this woman could also be called a prodigy of martial art, she was still very far away from the level of king tiers. She would definitely not be able to enter the Star Sand Martial Arts Academy. So how did she know about the Star Sand Martial Arts Academy? Moreover, she had guessed correctly on her first try. "Hee, your big sister cares so much about you. Yet you heartless little brat, only came to see big sister after such a long time." Lin Yuqi pretended to be aggrieved, and said, "No, big sister wants you to pay for it today. Enough with the nonsense. Is Han Xinyan here?" Ling Han asked in irritation. This woman always teased him. If he really did it one day, and then mercilessly plucked his bird, what kind of expression would she have? Of course, it was just a casual remark. Ling Han couldn't be so heartless, so he simply didn't go and provoke them. However, he also didn't like being teased all the time. "Yo, you're throwing a tantrum at big sister. Why don't you let big sister dote on you tonight and help you vent your anger?" Lin Yuqi stood up, and with a single step, she arrived in front of Ling Han. As an elite of the heavenly body tier, her speed was naturally extremely fast. Pa! A hand grabbed her wrist. Lin Yuqi was startled. She had initially thought that it was Ling Han, but the hand that was grabbing her clearly had delicate skin. She could tell that it was also a woman. Therefore, she was not in a hurry to struggle. After all, she had nothing to lose. However, her heart skipped a beat. How could the woman beside Ling Han be so strong? She glanced at the other party, and her small mouth immediately became round. Oh my God! How could there be such a beautiful woman that even she was infatuated with, and was even about to drool? How did this happen? She was a woman, and she was extremely beautiful. She could die from her own beauty when she looked in the mirror. How could she be mesmerized by another woman? She had a feeling that as long as this woman opened her mouth, no matter how harsh the request was, she would do her best to fulfill it. Thinking of this, she was overwhelmed with shock. What kind of charm was this? Moreover, even a woman like her was like this. What about men? They had to prostrate themselves in worship, kneeling on the ground just to touch her toes. Ling Han snickered internally. This bewitching woman was flirting regardless of the situation. Could it be that she didn't know that the one beside her was the Empress of the Chaotic Star's majestic empire? Her charm was unparalleled, and there were even emperors who were willing to give up their empire for her sake. The previous turmoil had directly led to the destruction of two majestic empires, and the cause was also Ding Lian's infatuation. From this, one could see just how charismatic he was. "Aren't you making a fool of yourself?" "Oh, you want to sleep with my husband?" Empress Luan Xing asked calmly. Ere this, although Lin Yuqi was also a person with a glib tongue, when facing Empress Luan Xing, she was as restrained as a young girl who had just entered the field of love. She was extremely bashful. She was extremely embarrassed. She was flirting with Ling Han, but she had actually encountered his real wife. This could be considered as asking for trouble. "All right, you will sleep with me tonight." However, Empress Luan Xing said something that no one expected. "From today onwards, you will be a member of my Ling clan. In the future, call me Big Sister." Big Sister, I was only joking." Lin Yuqi was given a fright. She was going to sleep with her tonight, and she was still a virgin? Empress Luan Xing revealed a hint of dignity and said solemnly, "Call me Big Sister." Fuck, you're really panting now. At first, Lin Yuqi had thought that she was very good at pestering, but compared to this woman, she immediately paled in comparison. This was practically forcing an innocent girl into prostitution. She hurriedly unleashed her origin power, wanting to struggle free. However, she was shocked to discover that the wrist that was grabbing onto her was as beautiful as jade. It was practically the most exquisite work of art in human form. Yet she was stunned to find that the wrist that was grabbing onto her didn't move at all. So powerful. She exerted her strength repeatedly, yet it was as if Empress Luan Xing didn't even realize it. She was astonishingly calm. The difference in power was too great. Ling Han shook his head at the side. Empress Luan Xing had cultivated to the pinnacle level, and had even reached the peak stage. Added with the fact that the Nine-Snake tribe was an ancient prodigy, and she had come from the celestial realm, she had mysterious techniques. For example, in the Ding clan that Ding Zizhen was from, almost everyone could use the tide of the ages. It was only a matter of whether they were slightly stronger or weaker. What kind of terrifying secret technique was that? Even if their cultivation levels were completely the same, it would still be very difficult for Ling Han to defeat Empress Luan Xing. He would have to rely on the defense of the indestructible Heaven Scroll, and in the end, win by exhausting her. How could that Lin Yuqi be a match for her? Big sister. Lin Yuqi immediately broke into a smile, her expression filled with flattery. She finally knew that the difference between her and Empress Luan Xing wasn't just in terms of appearance, charm, and figure. With her personality, she was naturally flexible. A real man could take revenge 3 years later. This little girl had a grudge, and she would pay it back in 3 days. When Empress Luan Xing wasn't here, she would tease Ling Han to no end. I was only joking, big sister. Please don't take it to heart, she said submissively, her eyes flirtatious. However, Empress Luan Xing didn't take it to heart at all, and said, joking? Then you're playing with me? Why you don't play by the rules? The seductive smile on Lin Yuqi's face instantly froze. Killing someone was just a matter of nodding one's head to the ground. She had surrendered, so you should also take a step back. There was no need to be conflicted over this. Her face twitched, and she said, how would I dare to play with big sister? In all honesty, she had never been so aggrieved before. In the past, who didn't submit to her because of her incredible beauty and astonishing talent in martial art? However, Empress Luan Xing's expression was still stern. I never joke with others. Since you played with me, then you have to pay the price. Tonight, you will be punished to serve my husband in bed. What the fuck? Lin Yuqi almost spat out a mouthful of blood. Why did she have to serve him in bed no matter what? She was only joking, so why did she have to take it so seriously? She laughed dryly and said, big sister, you must be joking. Humph. Empress Luan Xing's expression was stern. She shook Lin Yuqi's hand lightly, and a domineering origin power instantly surged into Lin Yuqi's body. Together with her own martial art intent, Lin Yuqi's cultivation level was instantly sealed. This was a crushing suppression, and Lin Yuqi was completely unable to resist. What? Lin Yuqi paled in shock. Her cultivation level had been sealed, and she was now an ordinary person. What if she was really stripped naked and thrown onto Ling Han's bed? What would she do? Would she really be humiliated by this little rascal? Oi oi oi, don't let your imagination run wild. I won't accept such slander, Ling Han hurriedly said. He could tell what Lin Yuqi was thinking with a single glance at her pale face. Big sister, I was really wrong. Lin Yuqi sobbed as she said to Empress Luan Xing, you really have to know your mistakes. Empress Luan Xing said calmly as if nothing had happened. I know, Lin Yuqi said in a small voice. She had really been beaten to the point that she was scared. Chapter 1432. Unfortunately, they immediately set off, and Ling Han didn't have the chance to have the heavenly phoenix divine maiden serve him. The cloud-piercing shuttle began a long journey, and only entered the Four Directions galaxy after a year, heading towards Wood Figure Planet. The Star Sand Martial Arts Academy was on Wood Figure Planet. This was an open planet, and there was no great formation protecting it. It appeared very grand, but it was also very dangerous, because if the starship launched a sneak attack, the planet below would be completely defenseless. However, no one was worried about this problem. What a joke! There was a Star Sand Martial Arts Academy on this planet, and there were 10 saints overseeing it. 10 saints, what kind of concept was that? Ordinarily, it was a great miracle that a galaxy could give birth to a saint. For example, the Long Light Galaxy didn't even have a saint, and Eternal River tier cultivators could be called kings, which showed how rare saints were. But here, there were 10 saints on a single planet. Wasn't that heaven-defying? Who dared to attack this place? Wouldn't they be stupid? There were already saints overseeing it, so why would there be a need for formations to protect the entire planet? What a waste of true origin stones. The cloud-piercing shuttle landed, and the landing point was very difficult to control. However, Ling Han didn't have a clear target, so he didn't care, and directly landed. Everyone came out of the Black Tower, and saw that this was a swamp, surrounded by gray fog, and their vision couldn't see far. Such dense spiritual chi. The denser the spiritual chi, the more true origin stones will be formed, and the faster they will be formed. Correspondingly, the level of martial art here will also be higher, Notionless Saint said. After advancing into the heavenly body tier, even his cultivation speed had slowed down, and he couldn't advance by leaps and bounds just by cultivating diligently. Thus, he also came out of the Black Tower, so that he wouldn't be thrown out by Ling Han as a shield every time. As expected of a place that can produce saints, everyone sighed ruefully. Previously, they had been to Cloud Apex Planet, and thought that the spiritual chi there was already dense enough. But when they came here, they realized that there was always a higher mountain. Furthermore, this was only an ordinary swamp, and not some holy land for cultivation. If they went to famous mountains and great rivers, there would definitely be true origin stone mines underneath, and the spiritual chi would be so dense that it wouldn't disperse. They advanced, although they couldn't fly until they reached the heavenly body tier, who didn't know how to tread water. Boom! A huge creature suddenly rushed out of the water and bit towards Ling Han and the others. It was a scarlet crocodile, but it had a bull's horn and 4 wolf legs. It was extremely strange. Greenie let out a cry and pounced forward. Its claws grabbed the crocodile, and it revealed its true form. Its wings were thousands of meters long, and it was even larger than the crocodile. This crocodile was only in the Shattering Void tier, so how could it be a match for the crocodile? With a single swipe, all of its bones were shattered, and it died completely. A random crocodile dares to ambush us? Truly courting death. However, the environment here is too suitable for cultivation. The first beast we encountered was already in the Shattering Void tier, which shows how dangerous this place is. Yes, although we are all very strong, it is better to be careful. Swoosh! At that moment, a beam of light streaked past, heading straight for Little Blue. It was now thousands of meters in size, and it was too big of a target. Ling Han could tell that the streak of light was an arrow. He immediately snapped his fingers, and the lightning sword technique was activated. Pa! The arrow instantly exploded into pieces. In terms of attack speed alone, in the same tier, there should be no one that could compare to Ling Han. And in terms of power, the lightning sword technique that had fused heavens might also couldn't be underestimated. Ling Han couldn't help but look angry. They didn't provoke anyone, yet they were shot by an arrow for no reason. What did this mean? However, before they could settle the score with the ambusher, they saw a man fly over, a hint of anger on his face. Behind him, there were 2 old men, one of whom was a servant. Who obstructed this young master's hunt? The man asked, his expression full of arrogance. In the hunt, he treated Little Blue as a normal beast, Ling Han humphed. He was a person who shielded his own in the first place. And now that Little Blue was shot by an arrow for no reason, how could he not be angry? This is my pet beast, yet it was almost injured by you. How are you going to compensate me? Ling Han asked in a menacing tone. Compensate me? The man couldn't help but laugh. By now, the 2 old servants had caught up, but they didn't pay any attention to Ling Han's group, merely standing respectfully behind the man. What a joke. To think someone would dare to ask me, Lu Shiwan, to compensate. It's fine if you don't want to compensate. Ling Han nodded. Just as Lu Shiwan thought he was going to admit defeat, he said, I'll shoot you once too, then we'll call it even. Lu Shiwan was stunned at first, but then he flew into a rage. Are you courting death? Ever since his brother became a king tier, who else had dared to speak to him like this? Either apologize or eat my arrow, Ling Han said calmly, but his tone was firm. Impudent. The 2 old servants jumped out. How dare you speak to our young master like this? Kneel and accept your death. Lu Shiwan crossed his arms in front of his chest and sneered. Do you know who I am? Pooh. Almost everyone on Ling Han's side laughed. This should be the standard line of a spoiled brat. You too. Lu Shiwan was enraged. What kind of attitude was this? How dare you? The 2 old servants charged out at the same time, releasing their might without any fear. Ding Ping rushed out, and Jiao also rushed out, not to be outdone. Pung, pung, the 2 of them each threw a punch. Instantly, the 2 old servants were sent flying back, blood spurting from their mouths and noses. Pa, pa. The 2 of them lay on the ground moaning, but couldn't get up no matter what. This Lu Shiwan couldn't help but shiver in fear. Although these two people were his servants, they were more powerful than him. He was only qualified to command 2 servants at the consummate level of the Sun-Moon tier, by relying on the power of his clan, especially the power of his elder brother. But they were actually no match for a single punch from these 2 young men. Don't act recklessly. Seeing Ding Ping and Zhu Yao take a step forward, Lu Shiwan hurriedly retreated, cold sweat pouring down his forehead. He had never thought that coming here to hunt to kill time would actually cause such a huge disaster. Ling Han couldn't be bothered to waste his breath, and used the annihilating dragon star arrow. Xiao. There was a flash of golden light, and it had already shot into Lu Shiwan's left shoulder. Pa! His entire arm was blown off, and blood flowed everywhere. It was a tragic sight. This was naturally because Ling Han had been lenient. Otherwise, how could a mere cultivator at the low extreme of the Sun-Moon tier possibly survive when an elite like him had attacked? Lu Shiwan was in so much pain that tears and snot were flowing out of his eyes. My brother is Lu Juntian. You dare to treat me like this? My brother definitely won't forgive you. Scram! Ling Han waved his hand. He wasn't interested in knowing who Lu Juntian was. Since he had come, then he would just fight. Cell phone reading. Chapter 1433. Thankfully, my little Qing is fine. Otherwise, I would have chopped off his head, Jiang Qiaoling said in displeasure. She had the best relationships with the old ginseng, rabbit, little Qing, and the stone man. Now, she was riding on little Qing's back, stroking its scales and feathers. Everyone laughed. Jiang Qiaoling was mischievous and quick-witted, unlike Ding Zhizhi, who was gentle and obedient. However, she was a joker, and all the seniors liked and doted on her. This was also why she dared to cause trouble. Let's go. They advanced. Though this swamp was not small, with everyone's speed, they walked out of this area in less than half a day. A large city appeared in front of them. They entered the city for 2 reasons. One was to rest, and the other was to scout out the situation. No matter what, they had to know where the Star Sand Martial Arts Academy was, right? This was an ancient city that had existed for God knows how many years. Even without entering the city, one could already feel an ancient aura from afar. After entering the city, this feeling was even more obvious. Every brick and stone exuded an ancient aura of history. The best place to scout out information was always a restaurant. Thus, they found a restaurant, and didn't ask for a private room. They simply sat in the lobby, eating as they listened to the discussions around them. Sure enough, they quickly gained an understanding of this unfamiliar world. Hey, did you guys hear? The 7th young master of the Bailao clan married the daughter of the sect leader of the Stone Slope sect half a month ago. Pooh, that can't be. Isn't the 7th young master of the Bailao clan said to be a handsome man that only appears once every 10,000 years? Meanwhile, the daughter of the Stone Slope sect is said to be extremely ugly and has a fierce personality. This is a waste of a beautiful flower. The Bailao clan had no choice. They were forced by their mortal enemy, the Lu clan, and could only form a marriage alliance with the Stone Slope sect. The Lu clan has produced a prodigy. What a prodigy! Apparently, the Dipankara saint praised him 7,000 years ago. What? The 7th disciple of the Star Sand saint, the Dipankara saint, praised him personally? What else? Lu Juntian only broke through to the mountain river tier 7,000 years ago, but now he's already in the medium extreme of the heavenly body tier. Apparently, he's not far from the high extreme. This cultivation speed is truly terrifying. He will definitely enter the Star Sand Martial Arts Academy this time. Putting everything else aside, even the Dipankara saint has a different opinion of him. And this time, all 9 saints are recruiting disciples at the same time. Entering the Star Sand Martial Arts Academy is definitely a sure thing. Putting aside becoming a saint, advancing into the Eternal River tier is definitely not a problem. Eternal River tier TSK Tisk, everyone sighed ruefully. Even in the land of the 10 saints, Eternal River tiers could be considered elites, and there were pitifully few people who could reach this level. The Lu clan and the 100 clans were both star boundary forces. However, the Lu clan had produced Lu Juntian. Furthermore, the Lu clan would be able to completely dominate the 100 clans in the near future. Furthermore, the two clans were mortal enemies. Thus, the 100 clans naturally panicked and urgently sought allies. The Stone Slope sect was an Eternal River tier force. Although they only had one such elite, and it was a Grand Elder who had long since retired, he was still an Eternal River tier elite, after all. This was enough to intimidate the Lu clan. Ling Han and the others exchanged astonished glances. This was too much of a coincidence. They had just been talking about Lu Juntian, and now they had heard about him from others. Moreover, he was indeed a young king tier, who had been personally selected by a saint. His talent was evident. However, which one of them wasn't a king tier? It was fine if they had heard about him. How could they possibly feel fear in their hearts? Speaking of which, it seems like Lu Juntian went to the Purple Wind Mountain. What's he doing there? Don't you know? There have been many young king tiers recently, and they've agreed to drink tea and discuss Tao at the Purple Wind Mountain. It's going to be held in a few days, and it's an honor for everyone to be able to witness it. What's wrong with that? He'll just go. Haha, brother, your thinking is too simple. That's right. Putting aside the fact that these king tiers all have powerful followers guarding the foot of the mountain, it's impossible to ascend without reaching the level of king tiers. Let's talk about the Purple Wind Mountain itself. It's a strange place formed by heaven and earth, and the number of heavenly body tiers that can ascend to the peak can be counted on one hand. What? There's actually such a thing? Brother, you're definitely an outsider. If it's someone from our region who hasn't heard of the famous Purple Wind Mountain, sigh, that means we don't even have the right to spectate the battle. I've only just reached the Mountain River tier, so I probably can't even reach the foot of the mountain. Everyone sighed sorrowfully, but soon turned to the topic of brothels, and began to discuss which girl's martial arts was more profound. After all, men couldn't live without power, brawls, and beauties. The womenfolk all looked displeased, and Ling Han simply suggested, "Why don't we go to the Purple Wind Mountain?" "Sure," Jiang Chaoling immediately called out, as if she wanted to see the world in chaos. "I'm just about to go and test out the king tiers here." The Rain Emperor's fighting spirit blazed. To say nothing of a battle-hungry person like him, Ding Ping, Zhu Yaosu ran, and the others were no exception. "Let's go." They paid for their drinks, and casually asked around to find out the location of the Purple Wind Mountain. This strange mountain was famous, and at least 9 out of 10 people knew about it. The Purple Wind Mountain wasn't far from here, and everyone hurried on with their journey. Those who were weaker entered the Black Tower, and it was only half a day before a lone peak appeared before them. There was nothing strange about this lone peak, but the people blowing around it were very strange. They were actually purple in color. The Purple Wind Mountain lived up to its name. At this moment, the foot of the Purple Wind Mountain was already packed with people, all of them looking up at the summit, and there were actually at least a few hundred people hovering in the sky. Some were at the heavenly body tier, and some weren't, but were half humans with wings. Obviously, the tea tasting and Tao discussion of king tiers had a huge attraction, and even heavenly body tier elites had rushed over to watch. "It's really quite lively," Ling Han said with a smile. "Fourth brother, let's go. Let's go up and have a good battle," the Rain Emperor said boldly. Ling Han couldn't help but say, "Second brother, they are tasting tea and discussing Tao. Isn't it just drinking tea and fighting?" The Rain Emperor said disapprovingly. Right, this second brother of his was becoming more and more battle-hungry. Ling Han turned to Ding Ping and the others and said, "You guys wait here. Only heavenly body tier elites could ascend this mountain, and they had to be king tiers among the heavenly body tier." Though Ding Ping and the others had reached the pinnacle level, they hadn't advanced into the heavenly body tier yet, so they were far from qualified. Su Ren also had his beautiful wife wait by his side, and there were only 6 people ascending the mountain. Ling Han, the Rain Emperor, Empress Luan Xing, the Heavenly Phoenix Divine Maiden, Su Ran, and the Notionless Saint. However, This group of 6 was extremely powerful, and Empress Luanxing had already reached the peak stage of the heavenly body tier. If she made a move, it would be practically bullying them. They lined up in the crowd and were about to ascend the mountain. Another few people who don't know what's good for them. There are many people who want to ascend the mountain, but how many of them are qualified to do so? Putting aside the fact that the Purple Wind Mountain is difficult to ascend, it's completely impossible for them to have the opportunity to ascend the mountain. The surrounding people were all mocking and ridiculing, and they were not the slightest bit displeased with Ling Han and the others. This was because the king tiers on the mountain had all left their followers at the bottom, and any random person that could become the follower of a king tier could be called a prodigy of the present age. Chapter 1434. Stop. As soon as Ling Han and the others approached the foot of the mountain, they were stopped by someone. These were all incomparably arrogant youngsters. They were clearly the followers of some king-level figures, yet their arrogance soared to the heavens. It was as if they wished for nothing more than to place their eyes on their foreheads, so that they could look down on everything even more. However, it had to be said that these people were indeed very powerful. They were all at the heavenly body tier, and one of them had even reached the consummate level of the heavenly body tier. His cultivation level was probably even higher than that of many king tiers. However, the title of a king was not due to one's cultivation level. Rather, it was due to one's strength in a battle against those of the same cultivation level. Only those who could sweep away those of the same level could be called kings. Ling Han glanced at him and asked, "Why?" "The lords are currently enjoying tea and discussing the Tao. Unrelated people are not allowed to disturb them," said a youth in purple robes. He didn't even look them in the eye. Ling Han couldn't help but laugh. "Does this mountain belong to your family?" No. The man in purple shook his head subconsciously. "Then what the hell are you talking about?" Ling Han sneered. "You." The man in purple robes was enraged. His eyes were practically spitting fire. However, when he thought of his master's teachings, he forcefully suppressed his anger. He waved his hand and said, "In short, no one is allowed to go up today." "Then why are there people on the mountain?" Ling Han was in a good mood and began to talk with the other party. The man in purple clothes was going a little crazy. "How are we going to taste tea and discuss the Tao without people?" "Yeah, since others can go up, why can't we?" Ling Han smiled and said, "Is the tea too expensive?" "Don't worry, I have money. I have plenty of money." It didn't matter how much money you had. That was a gathering of kings. Even geniuses didn't have the qualifications to participate. The man in purple didn't know what to say. This person was too much of a troublemaker. He paused for a while before saying, "Are you qualified? Are you good at fighting?" "Why not?" Ling Han smiled and said, "Don't say that I'm not strong enough, but I can definitely beat 5 people at once. If you can defeat me, I'll let you go up the mountain." Although the man in purple had only said a few words to Ling Han, he was already feeling mentally and physically exhausted. He finally became impatient. Ling Han glanced at the others and said, "What about them?" The remaining people were enjoying the show, so they could not help but laugh when they heard this. "If you can defeat Wendong, we'll let you guys ascend the mountain." "Okay." Ling Han began to move his limbs. Empress Luanxing and the heavenly phoenix divine maiden both smiled faintly. Both of them had cloaks draped over their shoulders, concealing even their exquisite appearances. Otherwise, it would definitely cause a commotion. After all, there were far too many heavenly body tier elites here, and normal methods wouldn't be able to conceal their appearances. Meanwhile, the Rain Emperor crossed his arms over his chest. He naturally felt that it was beneath him to battle with these few nobodies. However, he was not in a hurry either. In any case, the king tiers on the mountain were not going to run away. The man in purple was called Wendong, and he couldn't help but feel amused when he saw Ling Han's amused expression. He said, "Forget it, there's no need to fight. I'll stand here and let you hit me 3 times. So long as you can make me take a step back, then I'll let you go and let you ascend the mountain." The others were all laughing and joking. They were all prodigies of the current generation, and they were at least 4-star geniuses. Their strength far surpassed their cultivation level. Although they could let Wendong hit them 3 times, they would still be fine as long as they circulated their origin power to protect themselves. Really? Ling Han's eyes deliberately lit up. Why would I lie to you? Wendong said in disdain. In reality, so what if Ling Han and the others ascended the mountain? Would they be able to withstand the strange power of this strange mountain? Even prodigies like them would feel a strong sense of strain. Only king tiers would be able to withstand it as if nothing had happened. Then I won't hold back, Ling Han said with a smile. He was just about to throw a punch when he suddenly paused and asked, "Do I have to use my full power?" "Of course," Wendong said with a proud expression. "What if I kill you? What then?" Ling Han asked, feeling slightly embarrassed. Wendong was driven mad again. "You want to kill me with your measly strength? What kind of joke is this?" He humphed and said, "Go ahead." "No, I can't. If I really kill you, your parents will definitely make trouble for me. There will also be other aunts and aunts. Then I'll be in big trouble." Ling Han shook his head repeatedly, looking like he wouldn't do anything no matter what Wendong said. Wendong's face twisted, and he involuntarily raised his voice as he said, "I'm telling you to attack, so do it. If you can really injure me, then you'll have some skill. Even if you kill me, it's fine. Everyone here can bear witness." "Then I'm relieved." Ling Han breathed a long sigh of relief, looking as if he had been relieved of a heavy burden. "Fuck. Do you really think you can kill me?" Wendong felt incredibly irritated, and he really wanted to throw a punch. However, when he thought of what he had just said, he humphed loudly and said, "Now you can attack, right?" Ling Han was amused and said, "Big brother, brother Su wife. Have you ever seen such a despicable person? He's asking someone to beat him up." "No." The Rain Emperor and the others all smiled and shook their heads. The notionless saint also smiled. Pooh. Even Ling Han's other followers laughed out loud. They felt that Ling Han was far too evil. He had actually dug such a huge trap for Wendong. Wendong was naturally enraged, and his eyes were practically spitting fire. He was just about to attack. "What are you trying to do? Aren't you going to keep your promise?" Ling Han immediately said. Wendong's raised fist froze in midair. He was a prodigy of the current generation, after all, so he naturally cared about his reputation. How could he go back on his word in front of so many people? Thus, he immediately lowered his fist angrily, feeling extremely uncomfortable in his heart. He swore that after Ling Han threw 3 punches at him, he was definitely going to make him suffer. Ling Han's expression suddenly became serious, and he began to circulate his origin power. He raised his right fist, and heaven's might condensed, exuding a terrifying pressure. Pa 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 pa. Many people in the vicinity instantly collapsed to the ground. This was heaven's might. Those whose cultivation level was lower than Ling Han's didn't even have the ability to resist. Even those whose cultivation level was higher than Ling Han's would have their power forcefully reduced by 2 stars. Wendong's expression instantly changed. His cultivation level was the same as Ling Han's, and he was also at the medium extreme. Thus, he didn't collapse to the ground in fear. However, when he sensed the terrifying aura emanating from his opponent's body, a chill rose up in his heart. This definitely wasn't an ordinary heavenly body tier elite, nor was he a prodigy. He was a fucking king tier. He had always followed king tiers, so how could he possibly be wrong? Wendong was about to cry. Their cultivation levels were the same, so how could he possibly block 3 punches from a king tier? To say nothing of 3 punches, he couldn't even block 1 punch. Shit. His expression was filled with grievance. How could there be such a careless and ungentlemanly king tier that had screwed him over twice in a row? He hurriedly said, "I admit defeat. I admit defeat." If he was really struck by a punch, he would have died for nothing. Didn't you hear him say that he wouldn't have to take responsibility for Ling Han, even if he was beaten to death? You're admitting defeat just like that? Ling Han's expression was filled with regret. "You should at least receive 1 punch, right?" he bargained. "Woo." Wendong shook his head like a rattledrum. Ling Han turned to the others and said, "How about one of you take his punch for him?" "Woo." The others also shook their heads. Only then did Ling Han say, This mountain doesn't belong to your family. It's very domineering and awe-inspiring to claim a mountain as king, isn't it? Only then did everyone realize that Ling Han wasn't pretending to be weak. Rather, he was intentionally teaching these arrogant people a lesson. Chapter 1436. Zhang Qing was just about to ascend the mountain when he suddenly stopped in his tracks. His mouth was wide open, and it was as if he couldn't believe his eyes. It wasn't just him. Everyone was stunned. Lu Shiwan, who had transformed into a mist of blood, and Ling Han, who had calmly withdrawn his fist, felt a chill run down their spines. That was Lu Juentian's younger brother. There were at least a few hundred people here who could insta-kill Lu Shiwan. However, even if Lu Shiwan came over to slap them, the majority of them would only choose to accept it and extend their faces for him to slap. Some of the more courageous and powerful people would dodge, but when it came to fighting back, no one dared to do so. This was all because of Lu Juntian. Now, however, someone had actually killed his younger brother. Was the sky going to collapse? One could imagine how furious Lu Juntian would be. It wasn't impossible for him to kill all of them in a fit of rage. Who told them to watch him die? They felt bitter in their hearts. Who knew that Ling Han would dare to attack? Moreover, he was a king tier. Even if they knew that he would attack, how many of them would be able to stop him? It was over. He had stabbed a hole in the sky. Everyone fell silent. What were they going to do now? Why you dare? Zhang Qing stuttered. He was also dumbfounded. Even if you were a king tier, killing the younger brother of another king tier was an absolute provocation. It would be strange if you didn't become a mortal enemy. Where did you get your courage from? Didn't you hear that Lu Juntian was a rank 2 king tier? Rank 2 king tiers? How many rank 2 king tiers were there in the world? Ling Han ignored him. Lu Shiwan actually dared to speak dirty words about Empress Luan Xing and the heavenly phoenix divine maiden? How could he tolerate this? To say nothing of Lu Shiwan. Even if it was Lu Juntian, he would still throw a punch at him. Let's go. The 6 of them started to ascend the mountain. Fuck, what a badass. He actually dared to ascend the mountain after killing Lu Juentian's younger brother? What kind of courage was this? However, are you sure you can match Lu Juntian? Though he was only in the medium extreme of the heavenly body tier, he was already known as the #1 elite of the Lu clan, and had even been praised by a saint. His battle prowess could only be described as peerless. Zhang Qing was also dumbfounded. Although he wanted nothing more than to kill Ling Han, he couldn't help but admire him. This was the courage that a king should have. He would do whatever he wanted to do, and he would never be controlled by others. The 6 of them ascended the mountain calmly. Damn, did I see a ghost? Did I see a ghost too? Hiss. Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air at the same time. These 6 people can actually go up the mountain, and they seem to be very relaxed. What the hell, 6 kings? Heavens! They all held their heads. This was too inconceivable. 6 kings actually appeared at once. Of course, there were more than 6 monarchs on the mountain, but all of them had come alone. At most, they would bring a few followers. Previously, everyone had also thought that the Rain Emperor and the others were Ling Han's followers. Now, however, if they were Ling Han's followers, wouldn't that raise the level of followers to a whole new level? Zhang Qing was also doing his best to ascend the mountain, but he was already putting his life on the line. However, the distance between him and Ling Han and the others continued to widen. No matter how much sweat he was sweating, it was useless. On the other hand, Ling Han and the others were all chatting and laughing, looking extremely relaxed. If they knew that there were still 2 king tiers, Ding Ping and Zhu Yao, who hadn't advanced to the heavenly body tier, and thus couldn't ascend the mountain, their expressions would definitely be even more interesting. Which galaxy did these people come from? This is too terrifying. There are actually so many king tiers here. Perhaps that young man is also a rank 2 king tier? In that case, there's naturally no need to be afraid of Lu Juntian. Heh, you're too imaginative. How could rank 2 king tiers appear so easily? Perhaps not even 1 out of 10 king tiers would appear. There are no absolutes in this world. Haven't you heard of the Sher clan that once had 3 king tiers? Moreover, all of them were ranked 2 king tiers. I've naturally heard of that. However, how could they compare to the Sher clan? In the past, the Sher clan had a saint, and he possesses the bloodline of a saint. However, if that person isn't a rank 2 king tier, how would he dare to ascend the mountain? The people below all started to debate, and the atmosphere was incredibly lively. Of course, they were even more excited about the battle that was about to erupt on the mountain. As long as Zhang Qing brought news of Lu Xiwan's death to them, a bloody battle between king tiers would definitely erupt. This wouldn't be a spar, but a true battle to the death. Interesting. The mountain breeze here carries a might that targets one's divine sense, Ling Han said. This is the technique of a saint, the notionless saint said. He was the most qualified to speak in this regard. And he said, "What could I have done in the past? I set up a restricted area that only king tiers can enter." Everyone chuckled upon hearing this. This saint loved to brag. At first they had still been shocked, but now they were naturally immune to it. They didn't take it to heart. The Rain Emperor nodded and said, "As long as you cultivate to the pinnacle level once, you'll have a great resistance to this might. If you cultivate to the pinnacle level twice, you'll practically be able to ignore it." Empress Luan Xing was the most relaxed among them. She had cultivated to the pinnacle level 3 times, which was extremely rare even among saints. In other words, even if the Star Sand tier was suppressed back to the Heavenly Body tier, he still might not be a match for the Empress. Meanwhile, the Heavenly Phoenix Divine Maiden was slightly strained. She hadn't cultivated to the pinnacle level in the Mountain River tier, so she could only barely be considered as a rank 1 king tier. They didn't walk quickly, and they comprehended the techniques of a saint along the way. This wasn't just the might, but also a sliver of the Tao of a saint. It would be beneficial to comprehend it. However, Zhang Qing was running with all his might, yet he fell further and further behind. Finally, he was blocked by the mountain rocks, and could no longer reach the summit. After 15 minutes, Ling Han and the others reached the summit. A flat top had been forcefully carved out, but there were traces of it. This should have been done many years ago, and perhaps it was the work of that saint. There were 30 or so people on the summit. Only 4 of them were women, while the rest were men. However, regardless of their gender, they were all handsome and beautiful. Even though some of them had horns on their heads, tails on their hips, and wings on their backs, they still possessed a kind of charm that could make anyone fall for them. This was the demeanor of king tiers. The king tiers were currently discussing Tao, discussing some kind of change in the regulations of fire. However, when they sensed that someone was ascending the mountain, they all turned around, and couldn't help but be astonished when they discovered that it was Ling Han and his group. There were actually 6 king tiers that had come at once. Moreover, it was clear that they had known each other for a long time, and their relationship was very good. If they weren't friends, who would feel at ease letting them get within 9 meters of themselves? After all, they were also king tiers. All of a sudden, the king tiers here actually felt a sense of rejection. This was because the strength of this small group was astonishing. If they weren't ranked 2 king tiers, it was possible that they would be defeated. "Everyone, I am Shengguan Heng, and I am the organizer of this tea tasting and Tao discussion. May I ask how I should address you?" A winged young man walked out. There was a warm smile on his face, and it was as if he didn't have any airs. Hoo. Right at this moment, Zhang Qing finally appeared in the distance. Like an old dog, his mouth was open, and he continuously exhaled white gas. His face was covered with sweat, and his body was also drenched. Chapter 1437. Is the sky collapsing? Why are you in such a hurry? Everyone here was a king tier, so they naturally all had keen eyesight. Zhang Qing was truly risking his life. Although he was only sweating a little, in reality, forcibly increasing his speed and forcefully enduring the pressure here had caused him great harm. It was enough to cause his vitality to be greatly damaged for the next few years, or even several decades. It would be very difficult for him to make any progress. It was not impossible for his cultivation to regress. Lu Juntian naturally recognized this person as his follower. He couldn't help but feel astonished. Just what had happened to cause his follower to risk his life like this? His figure flew out to catch Zhang Qing. He was really anxious. Ling Han didn't spare him a second glance, and he merely reported his name. The Rain Emperor, Su Ran, and Notionless Saint also did the same. Of course, Notionless Saint couldn't refer to himself as a saint anymore. Otherwise, he would definitely be humiliated. Impersonating a saint was far too arrogant. Meanwhile, Empress Luan Xing and the Heavenly Phoenix Divine Maiden didn't speak. They retrieved a chair from their spatial spirit tool and sat down. They were elegant and enchanting, and they instantly attracted the attention of many king tiers. "Brother Ling, which galaxy are you from?" someone asked. Since everyone was from the same country, they would ask which region they were from. People from the same region would definitely be more friendly. In the star field, people from the same country and planet would naturally form an alliance. In the entire universe, the scope was even larger. Those who came from the same star field were from the same hometown. To a king, this was a sense of glory. This was because they represented the level of martial art in this star region. Which one of them didn't want to win glory for their star region? It was just like fighting on behalf of a sect, which was exclusive. This was a hindrance caused by the sense of glory. Ling Han and the others exchanged glances before saying, "Dongming Galaxy." The joint peace planet belonged to the Eastern Light Galaxy. Since the lower realm had ascended to the joint peace planet, they naturally belonged to the joint peace planet and the Eastern Light Galaxy. Dongming Sector. All the Beast Kings looked puzzled, as none of them had heard of the Dongming Sector. What kind of massive sector was it that had produced 6 Beast Kings in one go? Dongming, Dongming. I know. One of the kings suddenly clapped his hands in realization. Which large star field is it? Everyone asked. The king from before had a strange expression as he shook his head. Could it be a supermassive starfield? In the immortal realm, a galaxy with eternal river tiers was called a large galaxy, but it required that there were at least 10 such elites, and one of them had to have reached the consummate level of the eternal river tier. And if there was a saint, it could be called a super large galaxy. There was no need for great saints or saint kings. It was fine as long as there was a saint, and there was no requirement for the number of saints. After all, saints were too rare. Neither. The previous king shook his head again. The Eastlight Galaxy is a small galaxy. Microcosm. If they couldn't reach the standard of a large starfield, they would all be called a small starfield. Everyone had a strange expression on their faces. This small starfield actually had 6 king tiers. It was unbelievable. It should be noted that even in a large star field, there would only be 2 or 3 monarchs at most. If there were 4 or 5, it would definitely usher in a golden age of martial art. But in a small star field, if one was offered high incense, there might be one, but most of the time, there wouldn't even be one. Moreover, the king tier from before said, there's only one eternal river tier elite in this small galaxy, and he's at the low extreme at that. Puff many king tiers spluttered upon hearing this. It wasn't that they lacked self-restraint, but rather that this was truly too difficult to accept. There was practically no eternal river tier elite. In fact, there had indeed been no eternal river tier elites in the Eastlight Galaxy in the past 100 years. This was already considered the weakest of the small galaxies. Yet 6 monarchs had actually appeared? How could those from the large star fields accept this? Wasn't it infuriating to compare themselves to others? Is it true? That can't be, right? Brother He, are you sure you're not mistaken? The king tiers all expressed their disbelief. This was like a fantasy story. The previous king tier merely smiled and said, "We'll know if we ask Brother Ling and the others." Ling Han didn't deny this, and he directly said that there was indeed only one eternal river tier elite in the Eastlight Galaxy. Moreover, he had already died. The king tiers all started to make a ruckus, losing their composure for once. Fuck. Humph. Right at this moment, a sinister aura spread out, and Lu Juntian strode over. There was a frightening killing intent on his face, and his eyes were fixed on Ling Han. Ling Han! He roared. Although Zhang Qing didn't know Ling Han's name, Lu Juntian was a king tier, so it was naturally a piece of cake for him to multitask after Ling Han had introduced himself. What? I'm not deaf, Ling Han said as he dug his ear. You killed my younger brother, Lu Juntian said in a low voice, his expression as cold as ice. His father had died when he was young, and he only had this one younger brother. It was clear that he couldn't possibly have a second one. Thus, no matter how unfilial Lu Shiwan was, he still doted on him. As the saying went, the eldest brother was the father. However, his only younger brother had been killed by Ling Han. Ling Han said calmly. It was clear that he didn't care at all. Indeed, he didn't care at all. You, Lu Juntian was infuriated. You killed your own younger brother, yet you don't even have the slightest hint of guilt on your face? Shouldn't I have? Ling Han chuckled. You know your younger brother's personality the best. He would only bring harm to others if he were alive, so why not kill him? Good, 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 Lu Juntian said 3 times in a row. With each word, a ball of flames leaped out of his head, transforming into a fire dragon that roared in anger. Roar! A divine sense rippled out, causing the hearts of all the king tiers to tremble. So powerful. This divine sense carried with it a powerful pressure, causing all of them to think that they didn't want to make an enemy out of Lu Juntian. Rank 2 king tiers were indeed powerful. Then there's nothing else to say. A life for a life, Lu Juntian said coldly. He stared at Ling Han ready to attack. Ling Han only smiled. He couldn't be bothered to defend himself. A person like Lu Shiwan was definitely a criminal. He was only enforcing justice on behalf of the heavens. If Lu Juntian had understood, then he wouldn't have allowed Lu Shiwan to act so lawlessly. What else was there to say? They could only fight. They're about to start fighting. Who are you guys talking about? Of course it's Lu Juntian. He's a rank 2 king tier. And it's rare for even one of them to appear in a galaxy. I admit that the Eastern Light Galaxy is really heaven-defying this time. They actually produce 6 king tiers at once. But if there's another rank 2 king tier, I'm going to eat this rock. Haha, I don't believe it either. The king tiers all shook their heads. None of them had a good impression of Ling Han. What a joke. A small galaxy, that didn't even have an Eternal River tier elite, could actually produce a rank 2 king tier? Empress Luan Xing stood up and said, My husband wins, so you guys can eat the rock. She was a peerless beauty, so how could a piece of cloth cover up her beauty? How many people had seen her true appearance in the past? Not everyone had thought of her as the goddess of their dreams. Now that she was standing there, the mountain breeze blew, and she seemed as if she would float away with the wind. She was like a fairy. So what if they were king tiers? They all involuntarily held their breaths, stunned expressions on their faces. She was able to mesmerize the king tiers without even showing her face. This was the charm of an empress. Chapter 1438. A beautiful romance. After the king tiers recovered from their shock, they felt a deep sense of jealousy. To think that this peerlessly beautiful woman was already taken. How regretful. Celestial maiden, if Ling Han can truly win, what harm is there in eating stones? Someone loudly said. He didn't believe that Ling Han was a rank 2 king tier. Moreover, Lu Juntian had a grudge against Ling Han for killing his younger brother. So he would definitely kill him. Thus this person was definitely going to die. Then, this seductive beauty that could turn the world upside down without revealing her appearance would be a widow. Although marrying a widow was a bit unworthy of his title as a king tier. So what? It was worth it for this woman. Let's eat. Many people had the same thought. And they all began to pat their chests. None of them wanted to be underestimated by Empress Luan Xing. Empress Luan Xing nodded and memorized these people's names. None of them wanted to be underestimated by Empress Luan Xing. On the other side, Lu Juntian was already boiling with rage. The 3 fire dragons above his head danced. One of them suddenly shot out and charged toward Ling Han. He was still very cautious. His first strike had only been a test. Ling Han flicked his finger. Xiao! A burst of sword chi shot out, instantly shattering the fire dragon into countless sparks that drifted through the air. It no longer possessed any offensive power. Lu Juntian didn't care. If Ling Han couldn't even withstand this strike, then he wouldn't be worthy of being called a king tier. However, what surprised him was that Ling Han had dealt with this strike far too easily. He couldn't see through Ling Han's abilities at all. He stretched out his right hand and lightly pushed out his palm. Origin power condensed, transforming into another fire dragon. However, this fire dragon was a dozen or so times larger, and the might it exuded was also many times stronger. Ling Han shook his head and flicked his finger again. Sword chi swept out, and this fire dragon was instantly reduced to sparks. During his 70 years on the Cloud Apex planet, his progress in cultivation hadn't been obvious. However, his progress in the way of the sword was astonishing. The reincarnation tree and reincarnation tea had allowed him to walk far on this path. In terms of the way of the sword, he could truly be considered a grandmaster of the current generation. How long are you going to keep probing? Ling Han laughed. I'm here to see a king, not a monkey playing tricks. How arrogant. Lu Juntian snorted. However, he didn't continue probing Ling Han's strength. Instead, he leaped forward and charged at Ling Han. He opened his right hand, and a spear rapidly took shape in his hand. This was not a divine artifact that he had taken out of his spatial spirit tool. Instead, it was condensed from origin energy. What was terrifying was that there were numerous divine markings condensed on the spear. It was as if a supreme expert had personally arrived, and it actually possessed an unstoppable might that made everyone flee. He brandished the battle spear and swept it towards Ling Han. This was a secret technique he had obtained from an ancient ruin. It was extremely powerful and was one of his strongest techniques. Ling Han did not dare to be careless. He was also a rank 2 king tier, and their realms were the same. Therefore, their strength was equal. Apart from special existences like Ding Ping, whose strength could exceed his realm by 2 stars. Such a king could not be underestimated. Lu Juntian finally made his move. However, he still tapped out with his finger and unleashed the lightning sword technique. Sword chi swept out at an incredible speed. Arrogant. Lu Juntian was infuriated. Earlier, he had only casually attacked. If that was the case, then Lu Juntian could have just flicked his finger. However, he had already used his ultimate technique, so why did Lu Juntian still flick his finger? However, as his sword chi danced, he immediately felt a powerful pressure. Lu Juntian's sword chi did not seem to be any weaker than his spear. Normally, his spear would be invincible. Even if his opponent's strength was above his, he would still be able to forcefully tear a hole in his opponent's defenses and kill them with a single strike. Thus, even though his strength could only surpass 6 stars, his true battle prowess was definitely not limited to 7 or even 8 stars. This was the strength of a rank 2 king tier. Boom! 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 Sword chi and the spear continued to clash. Both attacks were formed from origin energy, but with the support of the 2 king tiers, they actually seemed to take on a physical form. Divine markings sparkled with every collision, and an aura that could suppress the heavens circulated. Images of gods and demons appeared in the air. The other king tiers were all rendered speechless, and their expressions became incredibly solemn. Every one of them was a competitor. Right now, they were fighting for the right to enter the Star Sand Martial Arts Academy. Next, they would be fighting for the path to becoming a saint. Everyone knew that this path was far too narrow. Only one person would be able to reach the end and be crowned king tier. Now, however, both Ling Han and Lu Juntian were so domineering and powerful. How could such people compete? Prodigies were divided into different levels, and king tiers were also divided into different levels. How could a rank 1 king tier compare to a rank 2 king tier? There were also some people whose faces were twitching. They had made a bet with Empress Wan Xing. If Ling Han won, they would have to eat all the stones here. Although they wouldn't die even if they ate a stone with their strength, it would still be unpalatable, uncomfortable, and humiliating. Lu Juntian, you have to win. Lu Juntian naturally wanted to win. Not only did he want to win, but he also wanted to kill Ling Han. As he roared in fury, raging flames surged from his body, transforming into black divine flames. He gripped his spear, and he looked like an ancient demon god. Ding ding ding. Sword chi slashed over. However, the divine flames condensed into a suit of armor that blocked all of the sword chi. Lu Juntian advanced powerfully, and it was as if nothing could stop him. Interesting. Ling Han's eyes narrowed. This suit of flame wasn't extremely powerful in terms of defense. Rather, it was extremely powerful in terms of attack. It was able to incinerate all of the incoming attacks, so they naturally wouldn't pose any threat to him. Fire element cultivation techniques weren't specialized in defense. Moreover, the creator of this cultivation technique had maximized the offensive power of flames. This was a completely different approach, using offense as defense. Ling Han felt an urge to clap and cheer. Not only that, but this shield of flame also had a powerful backlash effect. Would he dare to use his bare fist to strike it? Ling Han chuckled. He clenched his right hand into a fist, and actually launched a punch at Lu Juntian. Lu Juntian was also astonished. This secret technique of his was called blazing flame armor, and it was also something that he had obtained from an ancient mystery realm. There was no need to even mention how powerful it was. Even elites at the consummate level of the heavenly body tier would be burned if they came into contact with it. As for elites at the high extreme, they would be directly burned to ashes. You dare to clash head-on with me? After recovering from his astonishment, he chuckled coldly in his mind. You asked for this. They were both king tiers, and it was extremely likely that Ling Han was also a rank 2 king tier. Thus, it would take a very, very long time for a victor to be decided. However, Ling Han was still so stubborn. Wasn't he courting death by taking on his ultimate technique head-on? You can go and die. Lu Juntian didn't dodge. Thus, Ling Han's punch also rumbled over, directly aiming for his face. At this moment, even though Lu Juntian was certain that Ling Han's hand would definitely be burned to ashes, he still gritted his teeth in displeasure. Fuck. This guy is far too immoral. He's smashing his face with a single punch. Everyone knows that one shouldn't hit someone's face when fighting. Lu Juntian's punch arrived. Chapter 1440. In the immortal realm, saints were the most important. Saints rarely gave face to others, and those that could give face to saints were definitely even rarer. Thus, Ling Han felt a little smug in his heart. However, that was all. If he could become even stronger, he would be able to do as he pleased, and he wouldn't have to give face to the Dipankara saint just because he was afraid of him. Strength, strength. In the end, everything still depended on strength. Everyone was rendered speechless. Although Lu Juntian didn't have the highest cultivation level, he was only a rank 2 king tier. This meant that he was the most powerful among those at the same cultivation level. But in front of Ling Han, he was practically insta-killed. And with just one comparison, it was clear how terrifying Ling Han was. This guy is far too freakish, isn't he? Lu Juntian crawled to his feet, a dazed expression on his face. He had long since known that the Dipankara saint had left a wisp of aura on him that could protect his life at a critical moment. This was a kind of protection as well as a test. He had once been filled with confidence that this wisp of aura would definitely still be present when he entered the Star Sand Martial Arts Academy. Now, however, his confidence had crumbled. This wisp of aura had disappeared. He had disappointed the Dipankara saint, and this also meant that he had died once. I'll defeat you during the Academy tournament in 20 years, Lu Juntian said before descending the mountain without looking back. He was a person blessed with great fortune, and he had once obtained a mystical technique. However, cultivating this technique was incredibly dangerous, and even a king tier like him could easily die. Thus, he hadn't cultivated it. He planned to only attempt it after entering the Star Sand Martial Arts Academy, and under the care of a saint. Now, however, he decided to immediately enter seclusion and cultivate diligently. He definitely had to cultivate this technique in 20 years and use it to wash away the stain on his body. He Lu Juntian was a king among kings. Ling Han shook his head. In terms of battle prowess at the same cultivation level, Lu Juntian wasn't stronger than the Stone Emperor or the North Emperor. In fact, Qi Huangji was even stronger than him. The universe was vast, and there was no lack of prodigies. Empress Luan Xing's figure swayed, and she had already stepped forward. She stretched out a slender hand and continuously pointed. You. She pointed at them one by one and said, "You can eat stones now." Really? Those who were pointed out all looked embarrassed. They did say that as long as Ling Han won, they would eat stones, but who would have thought that this guy would really win? But to chew on a stone in front of everyone, wouldn't that be a loss of face? They were all silent. In any case, there were so many people here, and no one moved. Could it be that he dared to offend the crowd? A hint of killing intent appeared on Empress Luan Xing's face. She was incredibly proud, and she had also been the empress for 1,000,000 years. She was the will of heaven, so who dared to disobey her? She didn't mind killing them all. Hee fairy, why don't we make another bet? A man in green clothes flew out. There were 3 white lines on his forehead, but it did not affect his appearance. Instead, it gave him a certain charm. Pretty boy, very handsome. I'll exchange pointers with you. If you win, I'll have these people eat dirt obediently, he said arrogantly. The dozen or so king tiers who had made a bet were all enraged. If the 10 of them teamed up, who in the heavenly body tier could stop them? Yet, you actually said that you wanted them to obediently eat dirt? Where did your courage come from? I'm Zhu Yu. The man looked at Empress Luan Xing, unable to disguise the adoration in his eyes. This was an exquisite beauty that could captivate people even without revealing her true appearance. This caused him to involuntarily develop feelings of adoration. If I win, a smile appeared on his face. Fairy, please let me see your true appearance. How about it? Empress Luan Xing couldn't help but become enraged. The image of a large snake appeared behind her. It was clearly a snake, yet it had a single horn. It was like a true dragon that coiled its body, exuding an astonishing might. She sinisterly said, "If you lose, you'll have to eat a stone as well." Zhu Yu laughed loudly and said, "Fine." With a thought, multiple heavenly bodies instantly appeared behind him. There were actually as many as 4 heavenly bodies, and there were ancient characters continuously flowing on each of these heavenly bodies. However, no matter how hard they tried, it was impossible to recognize what they were. Consummate level of the heavenly body tier. He proudly said, "I reached the pinnacle level of the mountain river tier and the sun moon tier. Now I've also reached the consummate level of the heavenly body tier. Who can be a match for me?" When these words were spoken, the crowd was in an uproar. What? There's actually a 3rd rank 2 king tier? They only had over 30 people here. Since when had rank 2 king tiers become so common? No wonder Zhu Yu was so arrogant. He was a rank 2 king tier, and at the consummate level of the heavenly body tier. Then, would there still be anyone in the heavenly body tier who could rival him? The only ones who could surpass him were rank 3 king tiers. However, was this possible? Even among saints, there were very few who could reach rank 3 king tiers. It was said that the Star Sand Saint was such a supreme king tier, and his 9 disciples were all rank 2 king tiers. Thus, one had to be at least a rank 1 king tier to enter the Star Sand Martial Arts Academy. And if one wanted to become the personal disciple of a saint, they had to be at least a rank 2 king tier. However, this time, the Star Sand Saint was going to pass on his legacy. Thus, the requirements were even higher. Most likely, one had to be a rank 3 king tier. This requirement was extremely high. There were only 4 major tiers from the Mountain River tier to the Eternal River tier. Yet one had to reach the pinnacle level in 3 of them. This was enough to make most king tiers shake their heads and sigh. Zhu Yu couldn't help but feel proud. At first, he had disdained showing off, but Empress Luan Xing's appearance had changed his mind. Like a peacock spreading its tail, he couldn't wait to display his magnificence, so that he could win the favor of that exquisite beauty. How about it? Now you know how mighty I am, right? Hurry up and give me your admiring gaze. Boom! Empress Luanxing moved. Her palm descended, and it was as if the universe was collapsing. Zhu Yu's expression changed drastically. The might of this palm was far too terrifying, and it caused even his blood to stop flowing. A chill ran down his spine, and he felt as if he had stepped into the gates of hell. He raised his hand to resist, but an unstoppable force surged over, and he was instantly sent flying. He was like a mantis trying to stop a chariot, unable to do anything at all. Pung! Pung! His body streaked across the sky in an arc, and then with a very graceful posture, he landed heavily on the ground. The surroundings became deathly silent again, and only the sound of heavy breathing could be heard. Zhu Yu was a rank 2 king tier, and he was more so at the consummate level of the heavenly body tier. How had he been sent flying by a single palm? This woman was in the pinnacle level of the heavenly body tier. You could cultivate to the pinnacle level of the sun-moon tier and mountain river tier. But if you encountered someone who had cultivated to the pinnacle level of the heavenly body tier and the heavenly body tier, there was only one word for you: defeat. Even if your opponent had not cultivated to the pinnacle level of the first 2 tiers. Unless everyone had advanced into the eternal river tier, then cultivating 2 pinnacle levels would definitely be stronger than cultivating 1. The higher one's cultivation level, the more difficult it would be to cultivate to the pinnacle level. The majority of king tiers had cultivated to the pinnacle level at the mountain river tier, which was why rank 2 king tiers were so rare. In the hundreds of galaxies nearby, only the Star Sand Saint had managed to reach rank 3 king tiers. Hiss! If she could cultivate to the pinnacle level of the heavenly body tier, then it was extremely likely that this woman had also cultivated to the pinnacle level of the mountain river tier. And it was even more likely that she had cultivated to the pinnacle level of the sun-moon tier. Rank 3 king, that you're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.